from the government, and I'm here to help.
Take a look, it's in a book.
Some members of the community use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda.
Let's watch Figure It Out.
Welcome back to another great episode of We Figured It Out. We are the end of days best friends, and in between our now and then weird, we always got to bring back Brandon Kroll. He hit us up and he was like, I got some Catholic stuff here I've been working on, I want to recycle some new things in. And I hit up my boy Matt over there.
And I like bashing on some Catholics, so sounds like fun.
Yes. We said, let's roll. So, as it goes, we're going to give the floor to him, folks.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I did another show at just Mike Gendron, and while he was a Catholic for 34 years, I was asking about Hislop's work and what's his thoughts on that. Have you ever read any of that, the Two Babylons or whatever? In the
No.
1800s, he did it like a really early thing talking about the unholy trinity, explaining Tammuz, Nimrod, Semiramis, and showing it how it connects to the Catholic Church. Phenomenal work. And I asked this gentleman who's been doing it for several years, and he had nope, it just went right back into the theology aspect. So as you guys know, I try to hit this from a history, symbolism, because I want to hit it from all angles. I want to make sure that you have your facts, and that's what I always urge for the Catholic that does listen. Try to pick up the book. I'm going to let you know where the books are, how to dig in for yourself, because if it's out there and it exists, stop defending your adjective and denominations. That's anybody, because I'm anti-denominationalist from the get-go, and start defending your faith, the gospel. That should be paramount, not whatever things I'm going to be touching on today. So is share screen on?
Absolutely.
Hey, ba-bam.
Nice. I took a lot of notes, but what did you just say before that? Who are you talking about? I don't think I got anything on that guy.
Mike Gendron, or Gendron,
Okay.
Gendron. Phenomenal man. He does have a very sincere heart for Catholics. He was a Catholic for 34 years, decided to turn evangelist. And his heart's there, but I see a lot of Catholics always bashing him, so I was laughing because there's some of it where I was like, your comment literally is not, he says he's, they don't know much about the Catholics. I'm like, he says in the beginning he was a Catholic for 34 years. How is that not knowing anything about it? It's like,
That's
you literally
a pretty long
just wrote
time.
this grandma for the sake of writing it. I'm like, if you had, you missing your hearing aids? So yes, I updated the title, Counterfeit Christianity, Catholicism. I thought I'd make a little bit more Tarantino-esque vibe right there.
It's so
It's
Tarantino.
got it, dude. Yeah, I like that.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
Trying to do what I can.
Mary, right? That was Mary.
Yeah, I was when I was composing that in AI generator, it kind of came out like the Priest movie with what's his name? Paul Bettany, the guy that plays what's his name? Jarvis from the Marvel movies.
Yeah, or he's the Archangel
Priest.
Michael in Legion.
Yeah, some kind of. I was like, that kind of had a little bit of that vibe. I kind of wanted to do a little bit of Van Helsing going on too.
Sick.
Because they're in the Counterfeit. So that's first and foremost. Counterfeit looks so close to the original that you're not going to realize it unless you know the context and history. So what I am trying to do with this is showing you how the Counterfeit's tools are made, where they originated from, and then I want you to compare it. Does this sound biblical to you, when we start digging? And again, this is just for context. Some of it you've already seen before with other shows that I've done with you gentlemen, but just giving a little bit of context of Canaanites, cannibal, communion, right? We have a little bit of something like that with the Catholic Church. It says
Communion.
Cain thought he was the Lord, since Eve exclaimed, I have gotten a man, a Lord. The name Cain to mean Cohen or priest. So some people might know that song, David played and pleased the Lord, from Leonard Cohen. Hallelujah, that's the one. Cain developed his own religion after being cut off from God. He thought he was the savior. He created a priesthood. Since the name Cannibal is a word that means Baal priest. So, and also cannibalism is where we get a lot of this from. It may have derived the name from Tubal Cain, which is a term in Freemasonry. Some have concluded that Tubal-Cain was a descendant of this priesthood of Cain, and that the religion of Cain had to do with consuming of human flesh, mostly little children. When Tubal-Cain's sister, wife, Naamah, married Noah, this Baal religion came through the flood. How else could Naamah learn about the false religion unless her brother was a priest of Cain? She came to be known as Naamah Isis.
So they think Noah brought that through. That's what this is implying right
His
there at the
wife.
end. His wife. Yep.
Now, I was reading, as per Heidi Love's request from Unfiltered Rise. Love Heidi. Shout out there. I was starting to read one of Rob Skiba's books. Rob Skiba, phenomenal. However, he's incredibly wordy. When I did get to the good stuff, I came on to one thing, and it just popped into my head as I was reading this again. So Naamah was allegedly like 82 years older than Noah. And again, we don't know
Wow.
exactly what the sin was that went down between Ham and his dad and or mom, and it's a very dicey. But if this does have any connection with Tubal-Cain and Freemasonry, and as I've told several people before, why I highly suspect that the mark of Cain was the Z that we get from Harry Potter, Zion, right. And what are they ultimately doing with the greater project, Israel project? Well, what is that doing? If it goes all the way up into a little bit dish into Turkey, all the way back, that's Nimrod's empire after he came down into the plains of Shinar, and we're restoring ancient Babel, aka the golden age of Babel, on the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So what I think occurred, allegedly, because I think he has the highest incentive, is Cain got a little bit ticked at God for marking him on the forehead for giving harvest. That's Christ. That's Christ supposed to activate the harvest, right? Whereas he's over here saying, that's not unfair. I don't think you should have done that. If there's any celestial beings up there that'll give me celestial alchemy knowledge or some kind of intel how to make war against heaven, because I'm mere mortal, I will give you my daughters to mate with. Now, again, everybody has theories, but this is how I would suspect the Nephilim came about, and this is, again, Mount Hermon, which, since they liberated Syria, I was just reading a post on Epic Times last night, and they said that they're going to be staying there for a while, and Netanyahu was at Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon has the highest United Nations base, and its coordinates is the 33-degree parallel.
Yeah, as soon as Syria and Bashar fell, they took Mount Hermon in like 8 hours.
Oh, yeah. and this is...
They said, more land? Okay.
Yeah, like, more land? Part of it, like... This is steamrolling. They're going to try to do as much as they can until somebody negotiates peace. I wonder who that could be. Prince of Peace? Menorah Award? Look it up. I'm pretty sure this is all by design. And again, why I'm trying to emphasize this is because who's the people that gave us the Holy Land narrative? Who gave us the Crusades? Was it Christians?
No.
It was the Catholics! Sorry. Just saying, that's history. It was the Pope that said we got to go over there and save your family from purgatory, right?
Yep, and that's how the dousing of the head became acceptable baptism now too. You can just splash some water on your head and you're good, because water was a distance away usually in some of those places, right? You gotta start baptizing people. You don't want to be using all the drinking water.
It's like fast food. We got turbo baptism here. Come on, what?
You gotta get the whole village. Come on,
you got there was Timu baptism back in the day,
pretty much,
or Tamu, right?
Timu. That's just what we're covering on next,
right?
So Semiramis. Now, whether this was a brother sister, whether this was a wife mother, I am leaning on the wife mother because Back to the Future is supposed to be based on Trump. And what was the premise of the first movie? My mom is attracted to me. So I lean more towards that one. A lot of common figurines that you will see with this narrative is that Semiramis is holding a little baby, Papoose, right near her teat, right? And what is that symbolizing? The nutrients off of Mystery Babylon the Great. This is why I've kind of tried to connect this for some folks, is saying, okay, we have the original harlot over in the East Coast, or Vatican, right? Helios from east to west. What do you do? if you're baby Tammuz, you're bringing the straying Protestants back to the mothership, right?
Okay.
Right? And again, you're sucking at the teat of the whore of Babylon. This is what a lot of dispensationalism is doing. They're a holy people. There's a sacred race. Blah, 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 blah. Really? So no, no, no. When Babylon fell, Satan's religion shifted into Egypt. This is where we get Hermes. This is where we get Horus. And then spread worldwide. Guess who we run into in Egypt? It is the ever popular ISIS, right? And isn't there a certain group that they keep saying, oh no, ISIS is over here, ISIS is over here. Whenever we have a problem, we're going to put ISIS or some fill-in bad guy.
ISIS really did all the work for the Syrian rebels. Let's throw that in there too.
And Israeli and secret intelligence services.
Oh yeah, Matt knows.
Who's curious,
Those
yes.
guys are quick now. We left some good stuff over there for him.
It's what we do, man. It's America. It's America's way. Hoorah! In Egypt, Semiramis became known as Isis, the Queen of the Heaven. Now, going by several Catholics, so please don't bash me, but all of them have told me they don't read the Bible. They listen to what the priest guy says. They don't really pick up the Bible themselves. But what do we get in Jeremiah 44? A term known as the Queen of the Heavens, which is connecting with Astaroth. And again, Astro, usually means star, and Roth, like Rothschild, red shield. So we have Roth, so a red pentagram, the sigil of Astaroth. You can Google that, folks. You will find the pentagram. So for me, that is conclusive proof that Nimrod's mother somehow is connected as being the first witch in the Bible, or since flood era, so restarting humanity in essence.
Semiramis.
Lucky to be a baby in those days.
Jeez.
They're killing them all.
Well, so what
Egypt.
I suspect was going on, because we have that story with what? I'm not sure if I've said this to you boys before, but like with Abram, I want you to sacrifice your firstborn kid. Why would you want me to do that? Because everybody else is doing it unto Baal, aka Tammuz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get rid of your firstborn, you'll be able to have the power of what happened with Nimrod. Because when he died, he became god of the underworld. He became Osiris, which should be listed over here. So again, a lot of people are, I'm just going by what I've studied. And in life, he came back as his son, reborn, rebirth. You must be born again. His son Tammuz. Now, no, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm saying this is where the counterfeit narrative, it's regeneration, reincarnation. Whereas in Christ, you see these scars? That's what's significant about that. Yeah, that's the wounds that killed you. Exactly, and I conquered death. Now, Pharisees who are worshiping Kabbalah, Hermeticism, Kabbalah tree of life, they're going, what? He's not the Messiah figure, though. We put him on that tree to mock him. Yeah, but he's back. We have witnesses. People have seen him. There's crowds. Right?
It's so crazy too, because they literally followed Jesus at every moment, looking for evidence of something like that to persecute him for. And then when they made it up, right, and then they hung him on this cross, and then it happened, and they were all like, "Oh shit!" So it's almost like in my head, what if they had seen that evidence before? You know, that Jesus kept doing these miracles, you know, and they'd ask him, and he'd go, "But who are you to, you know, tell me the law?"
Well,
but it's weird that it blew them away after his death.
Well, there's that, but as well, they are supposed to kind of select who that is supposed to be, right? Their Messiah, because we're always reading, oh, you're supposed to get rid of all the Romans. What's their Messiah supposed to do now? Get rid of all the anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
That's what their Messiah did. Well, he has to be Jewish. No, he doesn't. Besides, he just converted to it in 2017, a certain individual that we've been keeping playing. Isn't that, you know what I'm saying? Because if you can do a +1, it counts now, right? I mean, so this is the thing, is with their doppelganger. And if I could, just for a second, I'm going to be doing a small little clip. But traditions of men, whenever you read that phrase, think Kabbalah. That is as above, so below. What is that? We mix God's word with our way of the way we perceive the world. We can have the world and the word. We can have government and God. We can have Christ and a country. We can have scripture and science. I'm saying the inverted, like evolution and whatnot. We can do that. And God's saying, no. And what's significant? Okay, so We love money. We love monetary stuff. Allegedly, Nimrod's son, Hermes, is the originator of coinage. I was doing a whole study into the etymology of the word dollar. Very fun stuff. So if he is allegedly the guy that invented coinage, they're going up to him saying, do we give unto Caesar or do we, praise God? Which one? Because we're either going to get you on blasphemy or we're going to get you against treason. This is a real good one. No. Unto what your government requires of you, but unto God the things that are God's. He's constantly saying, lay not your treasure in the things of this world. And what is on our money? In God we trust.
Yep.
That's already a slap in the face of God because he says, no, not about materialism. I'm not about money. Whereas their Messiah figure would have been, right? Accumulate as much as you want. Alchemy,
Absolutely.
man. You make your wealth. You find the inner light of God within you. Your soul, SOL, soul invictus, light of God, enlightenment, inner enlightenment. Yeah, that is what all this all-seeing eye stuff is. You find that within you. Whereas the other one says, no, I submit to him. Big difference. Yeah, so anyway, screenshot that, folks. Mithras is another one of them I'm going to be mentioning several times, Sol Invictus especially. And then Mitra or Mitra hat that you see Dagon wear, that is also listed in this list. Again, this is probably you've seen several times in slides that I've already done, but Beyonce is even, dressing up in the Statue of Liberty or Libertas, a goddess. You can see, as we were just listing over here, Attis can connect with this, Sol Invictus, Helios, Spike Crown, Spike Crown, Spike Crown, Spike. And again, I'm not going off a wiki. You can go all over and do your own research. What I'm prompting you is you see what's on screen. You see the old world and you see a little something in our modern era. And of course,
French.
Hmm?
Nothing. Sorry.
Matt and the French.
Those dang French. But again, often referred to as the Queen of the Heavens. Again, a statue of the pagan goddess Isis with Horus, right? Nursing at the breast. You have Semiramis and Tammuz. Another depiction here. I think that's Sumerian with a little halo over its head. Halos has nothing to do with Christ, but what are they doing? Son of God worship sun God. You're inverting it, right? I saw it was actually a Christian tea shop, but they said like that between the rays of the sun, they said like make Jesus Christ Lord or something like that. And I was going, I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it's a moment to pause and reflect.
It's funny.
Symbolism wise, it's very worrisome. You know what I'm saying? And again, Corona means a spiked crown. And we just had a Corona event. So when somebody's telling me we're not near the end times, I'm like, it's at the very top of the Hermetic Cabalistic of life. I think that was a big moment. I'm sorry. I don't.
They do it for a reason.
Again, if you understand symbolism,
the French could have given us money. Like this is like
Right.
the equivalent of an adult child of yours giving you like a macaroni picture and being like, "Thank you."
yes, it's like this is the best thing you've
I would
ever
have taken the cash, man. It's like, you know.
Yeah, that's actually a
Instead
good
of
way
your
to put it.
little symbolism thing, you know.
That's what they give you.
Yeah.
They're like, we're inventing to keep. Well, yeah. I mean, though,
Thanks for helping save our country and let us be a state like forever just a beacon
that's the
of
thanks of it,
getting
though.
captured over and over and over.
That's the macaroni symbol, right? It's them thanking over and over their divine, what they assume.
and that's what it comes down to. That's why a lot of people when they're telling me Trump can possibly there's a guy right now. Trump can possibly be the you're obsessed with him. I'm like, if you watch shows, maybe you learn to shut up. Why? Because if you know me, I read a lot. I'm related to some of these people. I don't know if it's some kind of thing where God's over here saying, like, I want you to do it specifically. This is where, if I see it, I have to say something because I'm not seeing anybody say it from behind the pulpit. I'm not seeing people talking about it. And if they do talk about it, it's so vague where I'm over here going, I can't stay silent. I have to. No, you have to give context because we for too long we keep saying this is paganism. Well, what is paganism? What do they believe in? Is New Ageism Freemasonry? Does it connect with Catholic? You know what I'm saying? And if we can flush this out, as opposed to just going, oh, creepy occult gesture, oh, there's drones in the sky, we actually know what their outline plan is. We know their origins and we know their end game, right? I think that's important. If you're going to go into battle, what's their objectives? What does the enemy want?
Why does
As
the
opposed
Vatican have a telescope acronym Lucifer?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It have its own country.
Yeah, technically.
Well, yeah, and then DC, as I did in another show, it was Maryland was consecrated for the Virgin Mary. No, yeah, and that capital used to be known as Rome. No, yes. Like at a
Why?
certain point, ding dong, do you really think it's that many of a coincidences and they're just, shooting from the hip? No. It's coordinated for
It's
a reason.
class. It's the teacher. And why did they do this?
Right. And we should be asking, as opposed to you ever see that little meme where it's a conformity box over the person's head, as opposed to used to be all different shapes when you're asking the teacher questions? What's your
Mhm.
And
thoughts?
see, even in studying history, like that's like one of the first things you should probably learn is like your very source of getting it. Like who is publishing it? What is their mindset? Like,
Right.
like how did they actually view the whole thing?
Right.
You know?
And I think that's the biggest thing, dude, is because we really don't, and you have all these people going with these like cryptic things. Oh, we're missing like 1,000 years in our history. Just keep awakened, my friend. It's like, what the frick are you going on about? Is that helping anybody coming back to Christ? Does that fill in any? No. So even when I'm doing some of my stuff, I'm over here like, guys, I want to give an explanation because if you're over here talking about the little season, what context does that have to do with us? Are you telling me Revelation is a useless book? How did the river Euphrates reflood?
We talked about the missing time, but it was totally a priest and like Jesuits who just wanted to make themselves famous and invent some fucking or some crazy time up.
Appreciate it. That's what I'm saying. A lot of this, when you look into it, if it doesn't make sense, there's something there. And when you dig, usually you'll find this connects with a bad organization. This connects with an individual has a little bit of a sketchy. So, if they're sketchy, we probably should try to figure out who sketched this freaking thing for us because they want us to buy this narrative. Like you when I was talking with Mr. Dave. Oh, and then when you look at all these outer things, and I'm over here like, I don't know if I buy the outer things 100%, but I understand. And again, you see how if you watched, I was pitching. I understand where you're coming from with the planet aspect of this one comes from this region, this one comes from that region. Whether that connects with stars, I don't know. I'll find out when we get up there. But I'm not going to pitch this thing where we have this land and that land. Because why? Because that's just like what you're doing with actual planets. You're trying to make God smaller. And I don't think God has that in mind. No, he so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So you think he wouldn't care about the outer islands outside of?
Yeah, they're all going too.
Right, right. I don't think that. No, that's just you're trying to understand the mind of God. That's blasphemy. That's what these people do. To try to understand his heart is to get to know his son. How do you get to know his son? You try to read the word because he was the word made flesh.
Gospels.
That's it. But you notice something here that was making me scratch my head, and these are some of the slides that I've updated. You notice the all-seeing eye, the womb, the snake mouth, your vocal cord? So look at the images while I read this little segment.
Catch that one, Mr. F. Bob.
Mr. F. Bomb. He's got a new name. Note this is also the all-seeing eyes, so the womb, right? Giving birth to something. This is why we have a star atop of the tree. Because Nimrod's son figured out how to become an enlightened individual, right? To achieve star status. What were angels known as? Star walkers.
Oh, okay.
And there was a little bit of meteorite put in every single one of the jib jabs.
Really?
Uh-huh. And we're in the alpha generation. If you were looking at Elon Musk's necklace when he went to a fight with Mr. T, He was wearing the Omega logo. Are we heading into Generation Omega?
Yeah, I did watch that fight and I did see him.
Yes. And again, I'm hypothesizing, but I keep seeing the symbolism.
They know what they're
In
doing.
your face.
Right. So she represents the gate to the dimensions of magic. She is the Mother Earth, and through her womb, again, sounds very blessed be the feet of thy womb. Life is born and dies. She is the gate to the underworld and the goddess that the witch and the warlock step down into order initiated. She is the realm of death and the mother to all life, and that is Dragon Rouge 2001. So, considering that is the symbol in the occult, isn't that very interesting that we see
Is
this
Jesus an
symbol?
only child? This might seem like a stupid question, but
No, he had
on
several
your
brothers and half brothers and sisters via Joseph.
okay, right on. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So I mean, it's cool and all, but I'm just wondering why we're sitting on her still.
Oh, with because they're saying she also is some kind of immaculate conceived crap thing, dude. It's ridiculous. The logic they're trying to say that she's like without sin as well, and it's like, no, God just chose her to be the vessel to carry the word made flesh. You know what I'm saying? I'm really, dude, it's so hard for me to.
Didn't the angel come to Joseph first and be like, no, don't do it with her?
No, he went.
No,
He
that
went
was
to
after,
Mary.
huh?
Yeah,
Because that would
and
have
basically was just
messed
going,
it
hold
up.
up, bro. I understand you have your concerns, but she didn't. She was not unfaithful to you. This is for real. This is legit. I'm here to verify it. I'm an angel. Yeah,
Yep.
it's real.
The the
So
Virgin Mary thing, too,
they don't
because
talk about Joseph that much.
they have the Marian apparitions too,
For
but
real.
then they like blatantly ignore 2 Corinthians when Paul's warning,
There's 2
that
Corinthians.
yeah, 2 Corinthians, sorry. I
I
wrote a
Do you
2
know
in
who
front of
says
it.
it like that?
I wrote a 2 in front of it so I wouldn't forget, and I just kept reading.
Your boy Trump says that.
He's a Bible guy, I promise.
But right where Paul's like warning them, they'll be disguised as the darkness, images of the light. And it's like they completely ignore all these apparitions of the Virgin Mary when Paul said that. And they're like, no, it's the Virgin Mary.
hmm And I think that's the thing, dude, is when you understand that God does not create saints out of his prophets, man does. God's looking for servants, right? He calls his followers laborers, right? He says you're going to be hated, you're not going to be so why are we exalting them? What's with the symbolism? What's with the graven images which we get in the Old Testament? Make for yourselves no graven images. Well, we're not worshiping her, we're venerating. Did you Google the word venerate? Within the top 3, you will find venerate to be in awe or worship something.
I wrote down to ask you that question, that literal question you just answered.
Venerate?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, I know venerate's got to mean something when they say they're just venerating the image.
Yes. And again, etymology, it's one heck of a thing. And that's why I always try to bring that into conversations, because I could be wrong, but then we see symbolism and like think the symbolism's confirming the sign language, that their symbolism sign language. Another thing that you'll always note with Rosicrucians is the dove flying straight down. Granted, this is a really crappy picture, not my emphasis, but you will note that this is the logo for what's his name? Marmari. You can look it up on Facebook, folks. You'll know he has a dove flying straight down. That's always a sign of a Rosicrucian. Yes, I've done other stuff, but I'm just throwing that out there. Symbolism will always give them away. The other aspect is this is the mouth, the snake's mouth. When you look at it from the inside, it looks very similar to a womb. It sounds a little bit like, there'll be enmity between you and the woman, whether there was a biting into the fruit, whether there was some sort of conception thing here, whether there was a spell imbued upon the fruit and biting into it is a sign of consent, of contract, and thus it would activate something.
The
just
seed of Satan?
Yeah, just like a jibja. I don't know. I'm throwing out possibilities.
It looks crazy when you put all that there. I'm like, what? Womb? That does make sense. A serpent?
Vocal cord. I don't know, but there's something definitely there. And to say that there isn't, well, good sir, this is over in Washington, D.C. This is the Washington Monument. Isn't it kind of weird that climate action on the World Economic Forum number 13 looks like the all-seeing eye with the globe in the center? And that's kind of where it conceptualizes in the middle, Baal's shaft in the very center.
The
Yeah.
shaft.
Yes,
Isn't
that's
there a
literally
mini
what it
one
is.
next to it too? Like buried in the ground for some reason? Is there
I
any
think there is, and that was
symbolism
actually
there?
something I was going to look up, is if we buried something under the Washington Monument, because just like we did with the, was it the Georgia Guidestones? They had some kind of time capsule buried under the. I looked, did we do the same thing with the Washington Monument?
Of course.
I know the Masons built it, and then the guy, I think it was 1850s, he was still the Pope when Lincoln got offed. He ended up donating the rest of the marble so they could finish building it. It's like, well, isn't that nice?
That was
Because you're telling
nice.
me the Catholic Church and Masons have nothing to do with each other, and yet we got
Ro-
symbolism of the old.
Explains where
Rosicrucian
they
right
get
none
some
of that.
money, right? I mean, how does a group of people get money?
Well, they're good people, donations. They're helping the
Yeah,
kids with
donations
cancer.
for who? That are supposed to go to towards Jesus, not building monuments.
Yeah.
And I think there's
Bale's
something in
shaft.
Ezekiel.
But I guess you would have to believe in Jesus, which I feel like that religion, they touch on it.
Uh, well, yeah. Their Jesus again for me. Okay, so if you changed his name, let's say that is Hail Zeus, Hey Zeus, whatever it is. The only exception where I'm making this argument is God knows your heart is because again, I'm not looking for mispronunciations of my name, but I'm ultimately looking for: are you serving my son? Are you trying to do something for the kingdom of heaven? Ultimately, right? Because you got people over in a lot of Spanish countries. I was reading sometime, and it was a devotional book, and the guy was explaining that the interpreter, when he's saying Christ, he's having to say Senor Jesus. Just a cultural thing. Do we call him Senor Jesus in America? No, but you follow what I'm saying. Like you have to
Yeah.
abide sometimes and adapt per culture that you go to.
They think
Um,
we're talking about somebody at Home Depot in the morning. If we're
Dude, I kid you not. I was working at my old job and somebody's name was just Jesus. There was no last name, there was no first name. It was just Jesus on the board. I was
I mean,
like,
you might as well
I
just
work.
go with Jesus. I mean,
No, I was like,
like, I'm
I'm
not going
done
to
for the day.
pronounce
I'm
it
going
the
with
way you
this
want it
guy. Jesus
pronounced.
has
It's
returned.
yeah, what if it really was, right? You're like, whoa.
Like he could real
Jesus is
subtle.
here?
Subtle. The other aspect that I was finding interesting, again, as above, so below, with the ram's head, right? Ram, the goat, symbolically represents both hippocampus and the female reproductive system. In astrology, it represents the Aries, the god of war, or I think this is March, April. And something I just found interesting is that it replicates what we have in our brain, mind,
How
and
did
also,
they get
again,
that
represents the womb.
anyways? That it's March or April, and like who gets to make these things up? And it's
So
not that.
allegedly March, I think it was again marching unit. That used to be our first month for realsies. Um, October used to be the eighth month. November used to be the ninth month. For decimal, decimate 10th. Right. This is how originally it was. We used to have 13 months. Somebody was trying to argue with me saying, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you even look at the shell of a turtle, which connects with Hermes. Hermes is one of the symbols of the, turtle connecting with it. And he has 13 spots on its back. Hermes is allegedly the guy that gave us a lot of our astrology, Kabbalah, right? Astrology, worship of
I
stars,
knew
like
you
we're
would.
doing in
I
the
knew you would
Bible.
have the answer to this. Heck yeah! All right.
So if we're going, and again, allegedly, like moon cycles, periods for women, a lot of this was all structured.
Right.
365 connects with Mithraism. Again, three for the triangle, three points of the philosophies of Trihermes. And then you have six points of the Star of David, the two triangles coming together. So 3 plus 3, 6. 5, pentagram. That's just the sigil of Astaroth. So you have Tammuz, Nimrod, and Semiramis. It's the unholy trinity of Babel is how you get 365 days out of the year. 3 plus 6, 9. 6 plus 5, 11. 9, 11. I'm sure that's all a coincidence, Your Honor. No, these people are very concise with how they do things.
All because Jesus told him not to look at that.
Just don't. It's like, okay, so the
How is it
best
going to
way.
judge how you and I get along? Because hey, dude, I
It's
was
not
born in
real.
March, so we can't get along. Like because my sign or whatever, and I'm fire or whatever too. Like it gets confusing. There's a lot to it.
There's so much to it, my friend.
Yeah, that's such crap.
And this is part of the reason why I've really wanted to debate Billy Carson. But now that I'm seeing after he has actually one real debate, he's running for the hills. And I'm over here going, because you want to know why? You're talking about the Ankh, the Ankh is the way we get our life. And it's like, yeah, the sigil of Venus, which again would connect with Semiramis and the womb of life. Something very similar that I'm always seeing. First, we have the snake mouth, right? Now we're getting the ram's horns, fallopian tubes. Now we're getting the sigil or little Ishtar, and she's carrying it, right?
Years old that I learned by being an Aries, you're also a pussy.
Language, gentlemen. Language. I'm trying, folks.
We're trying.
Again, it represents the vaginal canal for the hilt, the portal of life, quote unquote. Fallopian tubes, sunset, sunrise on each side. So again, when I was watching Fiddler on the Roof, I'm listening to the lyrics, sunrise, sunset, and they had the Star of David all over the place. I was over here, propaganda, mega load going on. And there's two poses you can do, but a lot of times when you're seeing celebrities go like this or going like this, right? You're seeing them do when they're doing the holly. This is part of the sign off of the pentagram, which I personally think it was what was the phrase? I think it was like Pier, Ra, and then you go base, like when Trump's doing this thing, mid, and then I think you'd come back up. I'm forgetting what all of them are, but I'm trying to I'm trying to think in my head. So if you're going like this, that's pointing to your pineal gland when you're going like that. This would be saying like the god of the rain, so Baal, fertility, come rain down upon us with giving us good crops and stuff like that. This is going from water below, so fertile the ground and stuff like that. And I'm forgetting what the fourth one is, but again, I'm like, I could be wrong, but when I see artist depictions, when I'm seeing the celebs doing it, I'm seeing ancient things, I'm like, this is something I think could make some plausible sense. Again, just showing it in more clarity. We even have a razor by the name of the Venus razor.
Bad Dodge owners.
Yes.
I know that. The Ram's crazy. Now that you put that there, it's like
Ram.
It's
All
the
three guys are
inside.
Now I'm like, dang.
It's the inside of a woman.
Yes. Or it for them. So a horn. So if you ever see Monty Python, those who call me Tim,
Yes.
wearing a lot of times horns were affiliated with royalty, right? Before they actually came up with crowns, it was actually horns. So personally speaking, before they actually made metallic crowns, as I did an episode, Origins of Crowns, Wreaths, and Halos, I'm thinking that Nimrod probably was wearing this. Why would I suspect that? Well, again, he came before his son, if he was known as the archer and stuff like that. Eventually, I think when he died, right? Well, he's not going to need it anymore. So who am I going to give this to? I'll give it to my son. And what's the son become known for? This is where we get Pan. Pandemic, pandemonium, panic. Right? Pandemic. Pan and a demon. Demon goat. This is where we get this sign. When you're doing Star Trek, that's connecting with the Kabbalah and the goat hoof. Why did they send a Judas goat out from the children of Israel? You follow where I'm going? So all of a sudden it's saying, oh, look, I'm imbued with the spirit of my father. And I'm just, Now, I don't have proof, but I'm just saying, if I was supposed to do a mini series of how bad it was prior to everything after the flood, or trying to explain what happened post Babel, this is the best one that makes sense, because as you're starting to migrate after Babel, people are not all saying the same name. There's a little bit of like, oh, I remember when he did this weird thing at the feast, he was wearing those horns and stuff like that. Cernonus, named Cern, right? Means the horned one. Dis means set apart. Ment means mental. Discernment. Set apart the horned one from your minds is essentially what that comes down to meaning. Cernonus, the horned one, which is where we get CERN, but also when I was doing the etymology for Saint Peter, saint means set apart, patar, Peter, patar, dispatar is the Latin sky god, meet Saint Peter at the pearly gates, of the underworld, Osiris. I was like, okay, so now in the Catholic Church, Saint Peter, right? That's Nimrod. Virgin Mary, Semiramis. Who's Jesus? Tammuz. And this is what everybody's going to gravitate towards with the false religion because it comes from unholy Babel, chakra, New Age, Catholicism, Freemasonry. It all goes back to the same core. It's just different variations. So, what did Catholicism ultimately do? Why are they utilizing saying, let's bring all the world religions together? Because it's all going back to Babel. Or if anything, what they're doing religion-wise is they're rounding up the strays and bringing them back to the fold of the goat or the ram. Hence Baphomet. And I will separate the sheep from the goats. I know that was a lot, but you follow where I'm going?
Absolutely, absolutely,
I can
absolutely.
definitely see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty
When you
awesome that they're
understand,
trying to get to the gateway down there. From Freemasons,
yes.
that's interesting.
And they're doing something right now and opening all the portals. It's making the sigil of Lucifer right now. I'm gonna be doing a Christmas one. I might be able to run that through you guys if I can't find any other hosts. I'm just trying to do a little bit of variety. So Ash Wednesday, right? This is one that we hear a lot with the Catholics. And what do we put on somebody's head? On before Christ's crucifixion, the cross symbolized the Babylonian god Tammuz. No, yes, who was killed by a wild boar. In his honor, women spent 40 days weeping for him. The origins of Lent. Therefore, the ashes placed on the forehead of the third eye, the pineal gland right here, your third eye, is not a biblical tradition. Rather, it's symbolic of the sun god whose Greek name is Apollo, possibly Apollyon in Revelation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, as opposed to I'm praying to like I was watching was it Quai Veda? It was a movie with Robert Taylor in the 1950s that came out, and they're of course emphasizing Paul. They're emphasizing Peter. Catholic production, don't you know? And they're trying to talk about the early church. And this lady is already praying to a symbol of the cross. Of course, you know, I don't know, within the 15, 20 years of Christ dying, but she's praying to a cross on the wall. And I'm thinking to myself, mm, why are you praying to a symbol of death? Catholics, why is there a symbol of Christ at his weakest point, right, when he's dying or dies on the cross, a symbol that he conquers? Because in Hebrews says he brings it before the throne of God, right? He conquered that symbol of death. It's not how we remember him. How do we remember him? Through us. Not by fighting him within us, but by our actions are prompting people of the faith that is within you. Not praying to a graven image, not praying to a symbol, to a pagan deity. Well, it's affiliated with. So you want to remember Christ on the thing that killed him? Symbolism, symbolism, symbolism. Why do you have to have that? And again, there's some Christian podcasters. I'm always prompting them. Please look into what you're doing for your logos and whatnot, because I understand what you're saying. But if that's the symbol you're promoting, what are you saying? Your God?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, Jesus is alive. Well, do you need that symbol to remember him by? So
Truth. Truth.
in Ezekiel chapter 8, the women were weeping for Tammuz, right? And this is something that I was reading because there's a ritual, again, with the legions of Syria after Christ, there was this whole Mithra cult going on, right? And Mithra had a lot of connections with Baal. This is in that region before it ended up being migrating to Rome. And this is what we're going to uncover today. So, partly as a resultant influence of the cult in Emesa, Syria, acclaimed Elagabalus emperor. An inscription, this effect had been found in Brigitio, dedications and expressions of gratitude to the sun god, Elagabal, were made by individuals of every class and position. The doctrine of Sol Invictus Elagabal had now penetrated everywhere. Wait a minute, Elagabal? Connecting with Elagabalus, a guy who ended up cutting off his in honor of his pagan deity? Because there's two ways that allegedly Tammuz died, as well as Attis. Is that one, he died in a wild boar hunt, very similar to Game of Thrones with Robert Baratheon, or he cut off his, he self-castrated himself. So either or, again, and that might have some validity to it, and one reason why, Baal shaft. Maybe there was some mythos as, oh, look, he cut off his, and he ended up giving us,
Oh my goodness, that's where they're like, thank you.
And this is where the bread of life, in contrast, what are they worshiping? Because he was known as the god of agriculture. You look up Dagon, he was the god of grain, same hat as the Pope wears. I'm just saying. Emperor Elagabalus, the crowned high priest of Sol Invictus, sacrificed to the sun god every morning. During these daily rites, for which he stood in front of an altar, presumably on a particular attitude and facing in a particular direction, which is very similar to what we read in Ezekiel. They're facing the direction of the sun and they're worshiping, and God's like, that's my temple. You think I don't see this? You think it's after hours? Come on. And he's showing Ezekiel this vision. The accomplice sacerdotes wore typical Syrian robes ornamented with precious stones. His face was decorated with red, and his eyes were made up, accompanied by a group of women who danced and struck music from strange instruments. He proceeded from the imperial palace to a lacabalarium around the various altars and had been placed in readiness. He made the round of the altars, performing sacred dances as he went. It may be that he himself examined the entrails of young children that had been sacrificed, for he had preeminently the sacra cognoscens, whatever, of the mysteries of Sol Invictus, and could therefore provide decisive elucidation and final pronouncement, so basically predict the future with their entrails. He could function with complete assurance of augur, since he himself had initiated into the mysteries whenever he had the symbols of other deities transferred to a lacabalarium. Does this sound like a nice guy?
No.
No, he does not sound like a nice guy. And again,
Fascinated with poo.
yes, there's stuff you can look up, and a lot of the alphabet community celebrates him as one of the first train, because
Dancing women all around him too, like sex ritual.
dancing or weeping for Tammuz, like why I'm noticing there was a little bit of a trend, and I'm just over here like very similar. And again, as you migrate, there's different traditions, there's different customs, holidays, you adapt it. We call it the Holy Land, as it usually used to be known as the Holy Land. Take that, Martin Luther. I don't think Christmas trees came from you, as some Protestants try to justify. Its rituals took place in the subterranean caves. Now, something interesting with the Mithra cult. The Iranians used to believe in a sun god, Mithra, again, sun god, sun worship, whatever. And they used to worship in caves. And they used to chisel holes in the cave so they could see the stars. And why did they worship in caves? Because they believed the sky was made of stone. Oh, that's interesting, right? They believed it. Doesn't a lot of the Masons do that? Yes, they do. Because one of the oaths while you get in, there's like Salve, Coagula, Sol the Universe, Sol the Soul, as whatever. That is Coagula Salve is what's on Baphomet's arms, the tattoos. So when people are telling me this has no connection, I'm over here like it's literally in their ritual rites. Yes, does connect. And you'll notice Baphomet sits on a dome. Just look that image up at any time. For the Romans, religion was purely a state matter. States. The state provided whatever was necessary for ceremonial display. And these ceremonies were held on a fixed day in honor of the official gods. The gods were worshipped in the name of the state and of the Roman people. The followers of Mithras, an equivalent, on the other hand, regarded the religion as a private matter, and there was no state that provided the maintenance or extension of the cult for its celebration of the official rites. Again, what's that thing we get in America? Separation between what?
Church and state.
And church goes back to Circe, and it represents circle. and that was always affiliated with pagan cultures. This is why Tyndale was always trying to say congregation as opposed to that, because that was affiliated always with the pagan rituals and witches. So there's a little something there. Regarding the religion, the votaries of Mithras gathered in small communities, as can be seen in the limited dimensions of Mithria. There was, however, corresponding large number of spelia. Each community had its own hierarchy. The external form of the ritual and the tenets were so far removed that it might be called the established Church of Rome, that it was not difficult to conclude that Mithras was never officially included among the De Publici Populi Romani, whatever. It may have been postulated that in the Hellenic, aka Greek, or Roman world, Mithraism was never an official cult, despite the fact that its adherents included prominent magistrates and even emperors. For the call of Sol Invictus Alagabal, the situation was quite different. Superficially, this cult resembled the state cult of the Romans in many respects, many of them grandiose temples, and the fact that the highest religious authority was in the hands of one individual who was usually a public official. From the moment its arrival in Rome, the cult enjoyed a certain popularity. It reached its zenith during the rule of young Emperor Elagabalus. This is before Constantine. When it made the official cult of the entire empire. In order to consolidate the status of its priests and affirm it to the world, Elagabalus, the function of accomplicemus sacerdos Dei Solis Invicti Alagabali, to rank higher than the Pontifex Maximus. Is that not the term for the Pope? Pontifex Maximus?
So
yes,
the guy looking at the entrails is higher than the Pope?
Essentially, he's creating a position that makes it that, and that's a term for the chief of the pagan priest. And it's connecting with Sol Invictus and Mithra. And this is the cult of Sol Invictus. You can get it for $94 on Brill. And then Deo. Oh, great. Is there anything sacred here? The cult of the sun god Elagabal was official. It had already established as such as the emperor when he ordered an icon of himself as high priest sacrificing before Mithra. So, this is where I started to chuckle, because what is America ultimately? It is conglomerate of what? States, right? Therefore, we're a segment off of the Holy Roman Empire, because we were founded by Jesuits from the 1776, all that. If you're wondering how I came to that conclusion, watch One Nation Under Satan, or purchase the book by Tupper Saucy, Rulers of Evil. We were not founded as a Christian country. I hate to break it to you folks, but very bad people. And this goes back to what allegedly Voltaire said. I'm throwing it out there because apparently they don't update memes and get rid of the fake news, but they'll always fact check when you quote somebody. So I'm saying allegedly, the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. And what ended up becoming after Rome broke, it became fiefs, right? It was essentially divided up, but everybody went back and said, okay, I'll go kiss the Pope's ring, right? You want to make your living on yourself, all right, that's fine. If you want to get married, you got to get my bless, classic Godfather stuff.
That was pretty good.
Oh, thank you. I just watched that movie for the first time, and I loved it. The first one. Second one, meh. Third one, I was like, I don't even know if after the second one,
it loses. Yeah, it starts going.
Yeah. First one was very intriguing. I was like, okay. Very sad, though. So immortality of the soul, which is something of the Christmas trees, right? It represents immortality and everlasting life. Sol Invictus, soul. Your soul is So this is what I'm saying. When you're already butchering or again, not necessarily butchering, but you're going back to what probably original Babel language. Who knows? We could be speaking what they were speaking at Babel, right? The English language that's just morphed all right back together over time. And spelling, right? Casting spells. Maybe this was with a plan all along.
That's a crazy thought.
Hey, but soul, again, we're speaking allegedly a bastard language, allegedly, but soul. ultimately soul, your spirit. But what they're saying with SOL, soul, is finding that inner light of God within yourself. So, you see what I'm saying? So this is how New Ageism, they'll take the same thing and it's inverted, right? This is classic of what they do with everything. They invert everything. So they're over here going, oh yeah, you find God within me. Huh? What point does Christ say, now I want you to go out in the wilderness and find God within you? No. Constantly he's sacrificing himself and doing things for others, not being selfish and looking only into himself or meditating to find his inner. No, 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 no. He's not some ascended master. That's what I'm trying to clarify today.
Yeah, I don't know where hippie Jesus came from. It's different.
Masons. That's ultimately where that whole New Ageism comes from, and I'm prepping a show on specifically that.
Hippie Jesus.
Hippie Jesus. Yeah. So we have found traces, and I can't see. Could you please move that thing? Okay, never mind. We have found traces, blah, 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 all in the cult of Sol Invictus Alagabal. If our interpretation of the symbol's representations has not misled us, when the cult of Sol Invictus Alagabal had become completely established thanks to its persistence and inflexible purpose of Alagabalis, the cult of Mithras was already on the wane. Now, one is a state religion, the other one is basically more prominent with, so you might say elites. So if we're thinking in our Western terms, Masonic lodges would be Mithra. It's like, oh yeah, we know about Masons. Well, what goes on in the lodges? Don't have any idea. And then you go to Hollywood, you go to Washington, D.C., and you're like, oh yeah, everybody knows Sol Invictus. So this is the equivalent. It's almost the same thing. It's just a different cultural religion of how the ceremonies are performed, if that makes sense. So think of it that way. Protestant, Catholic, how everything's done. When the cult, blah, 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 thanks to the persistence of the inflexible purpose of Elagabalus, the cult of Mithras was already on the wane. Sol Invictus, having become the influential competitor at the beginning of the 3rd century. But just when it had become evident that Sol Invictus was about to eclipse the Persian Mithras, the former was struck by a damaging blow by the damnatio memoriae of this high priest. This had been interpreted as many scholars as the sign of approaching the Syrian cult. For some time, Sol Invictus Alagabal lost all esteem in Rome. In a sense, this situation favored Mithras, but it was only for a brief duration. Mithraism was not made as the sole religion, and so the cult of Sol Invictus was able to regain its position in the end. Priest adherents continued to serve the interests of this cult, that in essence is so completely satisfied the needs of this time. The cult of Sol Invictus played its part in bringing the Romans of the 3rd century to accept the concept of syncretism and lay its greatest significance. Nevertheless, it was not until the reforms of Aurelian, and then this is not Marcus Aurelian, it's just another individual, AD 274, in spite of the inglorious end had been planned for its as exemplified in the person of Elagabalus, the cult of Sol Invictus Elagabal was completely accepted in its definitive form. Now, this is all pre-Constantine. This is like almost 230, 250 years. I'm just laying out. So by the time Constantine came around, he was just going, as I read in Rulers of Evil, is saying, okay, so instead of having Romulus and Remus as, the two dogs that were like the patron saints of Rome, we're going to replace it with St. Paul and Peter. Instead of this, we're just going to re-Christianize it. It's camouflaged paganism. This is something they constantly did even as they were migrating. So originally the Roman legions would go out, they go war against the tribes. What did they do instead? Instead of picking up a sword, let's give them symbolism. You want to have that deity? Fine. We'll find a saint. We'll make it the same thing. He has an animal. He has this. Cool. Get to keep the same thing you want. Right? We'll just bring you into the church. What did this do? We get rid of tribes, and we also start to create the incentive for taxation or giving money to the church. Right?
That's insane. They just, oh, okay. Well, we can find a saint who's your deity.
Right. And what does this do? Okay, everybody happy now? Cool. Now give me money. What? But this is what they've constantly been doing, and that's not what Christianity is about.
It's like that friend who lets you borrow something and then you use it, and then like 6 months later they're like, "Hey, remember that one time? Yeah, it was
Yes.
like $20." You're like,
I want to know. The cult of the Syrian sun god survived and continued to evolve Inscriptions once again mentioned him. His portrait and dedications to him appear more and more as the imperial coins. And there's even more than a few emperors themselves portrayed in Rome with the features of Sol Invictus. Okay, the rays over the head, halos, fill in the blank. Unfortunately, the military anarchy that for most of half a century made every social, cultural, and religious activity impossible also prevented the preservation in much of the cult of Sol Invictus. In the same period, Mithraism, aka think of Masons, the foundation, too, sustained a heavy blow. When about in AD 274, the barbarians conquered definitely the god. Same a liberated slave, blah, 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 blah. Sol Invictus Alagabal took care of the transient as well as the eternal interests of the faithful followers. The most important event of liberation was for a slave, would certainly arouse feelings of gratitude. Everybody's the same in the brotherhood, right? As we often hear. Not to a deity of lower rank unless the deity had been appealed to be a special protector, but to this particular god whose name was often spoken incessantly, filled the men's hearts and souls as the invincible sun god. The Syrian freedmen had continued to practice this religion in Rome, and would have been most helpful to the dedication could be dated more exactly, if dates from time prior to formal establishment of the cult of Sol Invictus in Rome, which would explain the expression of gratitude to this sun god of some extent, or from subsequent period in which there could be no doubt the simple soul referred to the Syrian Elagabal. The dedication made by C. Julius Helios, who had been his signum ferarius, carved on an altar, presents us with the similar problem. Since this usage was not Roman custom, at least not before the end of the 2nd century, the sun god to whom Aurelia Memoria, can't pronounce half these things, was dedicated, and can be none other than the Sol Invictus, and the inscription must be, in all probability, date from the beginning of the 3rd century. On either side of the text, picture and plate are represented in relief. These objects were used daily by the priest of Sol Invictus Alagabal. So anyways, there's inscriptions implying that this thing existed. There are people who were worshiping it and high-ranking stuff. The thing that I found interesting as I kept going, and if I ever do this episode with you gentlemen, is that the origins of BlackRock came into play. And I was noticing, this originator from Elagabalus with some close to him conceived the idea of surrounding the symbol of the sun god with a mass of light and torches, right? Mainly during the annual procession with the conical stone was carried through the city on a chariot drawn by 4 white horses. And it was a black stone. And when you're reading the Bible, the black stone and the Princess Diana, when Paul and Barnabas were going through the city, what did they mistake Paul for? Hermes, which is an equivalent of Tammuz, and the orator, right?
Really?
Yes. And the Princess Diana and the black stone, or Mecca is another black stone.
Yep. When Catholics like bless their
That's the one that they all bow to whichever direction too, right? That's
Yes.
another directional.
When Catholics like bless their new altar, it's like a black stone that they put like things on each corner of, and then they put this oil on it and they burn it and they rub it, and it's a literal huge giant black stone.
Yes.
It's like, why? That's weird. It's
black,
ugly.
Yeah.
Everything in your building is gold and gaudy and all this stuff, and then you got this weird black rock for a reason.
Well, again, when
I think you could pick something lighter.
As opposed to what a lot of people do, it's like, where did this come from? Where did Christ use this? Where did the disciples? Do we have a chapter where the disciples were doing this ceremony? No, we don't. So my question is, what makes it holy? Where did it stem from? And a lot of Catholics, they already probably wrote their mean comment within the first 5 minutes of this whole thing, and they didn't bother listening to anything else, and they're just upset because somebody's bashing their traditions, their rituals, right? And I'm asking, as opposed, as what Paul said, examine if you're in the faith. I question your faith, because if you're putting so much emphasis on the adjectives and the rituals that Christ never himself did, or Mary, if you want to get why are we doing it? Where does it come from? And if
How
it
did they
connects with the
repent
pagan
before Mary?
Somehow they
true
think that she has co-equalship with being an intermediator, and like my birth mother, they've been wronged by men, and so sometimes they like, oh, I want to go to a woman. So it's kind of like, you're at a prayer group, and we don't want you to sit in private with the pastor because that's going to look kind of scandalous. So I'll take the pastor's wife or one of the deaconesses. Similarly, they go to a saint because, the things I want to say is it'd probably be best if a woman heard it as opposed to. Again, I'm going off of what former Catholics have told me, and I'm going off of somebody who's been hurt by the church, and so they're going to the saint to intercede as opposed to going to Christ, who has conquered all of this, and you can have direct relationship with God the Father.
Easiest choice.
Right.
I gotta go do like 12, 15, however many kneel sits or whatever
Hail
for my
Marys and all
sins.
this.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I always
It's
just
way
thought that
too
was a
much.
joke.
Yeah. Have you ever shown up to a Catholic funeral too early? Don't do that. Don't do that.
I went to my Uncle Mike's, and I also went to a wedding at a Catholic church. And both occasions, dude, it felt so weird.
Yeah, because I ain't doing all that, man. I ain't working out with you guys. So.
I had a bad knee. So they're when they're doing the wedding and they're getting down on their little bench thing that they have behind the pews. I was over here like my knee almost popped out when doing all that. I said, you know what? We're gonna go like there we go.
Yeah. I didn't get down. I went to one in the summer and I was like, I'm not doing all this
I'm not
crap.
getting down with y'all. That's probably where that came from.
I'm here for the wedding.
Yes, right. I can kind of skip most of this, but just talking about how Constantine in 321 decreed that Sunday would be a rest, a legal holiday. It appears that Constantine's intention in doing so was to honor the god Mithras, the unconquered sun god. Almost to this dying day, Constantine still functioned as the high priest of paganism, aka the Pontifex Maximus. In fact, he retained the title Pontifex Maximus, which means chief of the pagan priests, up until the 15th century. When Constantine dedicated Constantinople as the new capital on May 11th, 333, he adorned it with treasures taken from the heathen temples, and he used pagan magic formulas to protect crops and heal diseases. So, you can get this from Pagan Christianity by Frank Viola. Phenomenal thing, just asking why we do the traditions in the church. Why do we get dressed up? Why do we tithe? Or should we even tithe? Asking context. I want to have context. How did the early church do it? What are we supposed to be doing? As opposed to going into I have to defend my denominational adjective.
Just because of tradition.
Right.
Right.
Did
Kabbalah, that's what it is.
Constantine know that the original Sabbath would have been a Saturday, and that's why he changed it to Sunday?
1,000%.
Okay.
And part of it, again, as we get with the modern Pope, vicar of Christ means substitute. I am Christ in the flesh while he's gone. So in essence, people are always asking me, so Brandon, if they have this guy before Christ, how do we know it's just not all the same? Or they just took it from another mythos, blah, 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 blah. Go back to Cain, right? I want to know how to make war against God Almighty. Is there anything up there? Well, give me celestial intel to how to do this, right? So they come down. Orgy's about to go over, and he's over here going, all right, here goes terms of agreement. Yeah. Okay, so he's going to send some savior figure. It's going to be some kind of son or whatever. I don't know. It's something like that's going to happen. And it's going to be, you're an angel. You don't know the mind of God, but you've seen the blueprints, right? Because you're part of the council in heaven. You have a rough idea, but you don't know how it's going to be implemented because they always says the angels are in awe and wonder of God. But you have a rough idea, and you're over here like, here's a rough sketch. Okay. What am I supposed to? I'm going to go mate now. Okay. Now, granted, did Cain end up doing it? No. But we get the story of Lamech building the emerald tablets, and they survived the flood. And over time, and again, Gary Wayne's book, Genesis 6 Conspiracy, he's writing about how Hermes, and he translated the emerald tablets. Somehow they were strong enough to survive the flood. So I'm saying they weren't exactly dummies back then. He comes over, he translates the emerald tablets. He starts teaching everybody, oh, look at the stars, look at this. He records all this paganism and reboots it back into society. And everybody starts worshiping. This is great, blah, blah, blah. Now we know how to do this again. And it was on Twin Towers, right? As I've done before with the 9/11 episode with you guys. So again, you're trying to bring back Tammuz, the rebirthed guy, right? And give over that empire back to a Nimrod, who I think would be Baron, right? The last president. Yeah. They're trying to do that, but what does it say in Matthew? If the end times was not cut short, no human flesh on the earth would survive.
Yep.
That's what I suspect. But right now we have a guy whose name etymology connects with this Tammuz person. Hence why I'm obsessive over it, because I'm over here going, yeah, blasphemy plus this, I'm finding that to be kind of concerning. You know what I'm saying? So, to answer people's question, what I'm saying is that the angels had a rough blueprint of what was going to happen by the time he came down. What were the demons going? Son of Creator God, right? What's significant about that? Your parents came down because when a giant was slain, their bodies, or they're no longer existed, but it says God was locking the angels under the river Euphrates. He says, when your kids are slain, they're going to roam the earth for 70 generations until the time of the end. This is where we get actual demons, not fallen angels. It's the slain body of a giant. This is why they had the strength of almost like 10 men, right? So now you're possessed in a human vessel, and Christ is approaching you. In Genesis 6:4, it calls them the sons of God, and he's over here going, you're son of Creator God. That's not for you to talk about. Right? So suddenly they're going, word of God is here, right? Because the word became flesh, John 1:14, and then the name of Christ is the word of God, Revelation 19:13. So you're now having this embodiment in the flesh, and they're over here going, you're not supposed to show up till the time. What are you doing here? I'm doing my Father's will, and it's not for you to know. Satan, why is he tempting him? What are you doing in my realm? You're supposed to show up at the end. Like, what's going on here, man?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know people have to submit to the word of God, but why are you here in a fleshly form? Do you mind explaining that to me? Because the angels don't know, but they had a rough sketch, and you hand that over haphazardly, and Nimrod, he's trying to redo it. He dies. And they're like, okay, we had to keep this going because we had so much power and stuff like that. Keep the traditions going. Keep this going. What are we going to say about Nimrod? His seed filled me. For all we know, Tammuz could be a bastard. He's not even real Nimrod's son. You know what I'm saying? For all we know. But this is what the occult believe, and you can't tell me it wasn't contagious in some way, because to this very day, we're still doing it, and we can't seem to break free from that. Patriotism can't break free of that. Voting can't break free of that. We can't get rid of our Christmas trees. Why? You can't tell me there's not some sort of thing here. Did you guys hear the etymology of the word government?
No. Tell us.
So you're doing govern. Fourth word. Control. Ment stems from the Latin. This is Oxford Dictionary, by the way. Ment. Mind. It literally means mind control. And who is the guy that first gave us cities in a semi-government? Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
Oppress us with coinage? His son. Go somewhere here, folks. A different etymology.
Mental game, especially when it's all just a social construct, right?
It's a social construct of Stockholm syndrome, right? It's like, is everybody happy? Then everybody dance. Is in essence what they're doing culturally with us. And this is why we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. This is why stories, when you're in captive Babylon, right? We're not going to bow to the statue. Everybody else is doing it. Daniel, why aren't you just submit to the prayer, dude? No, I'm still going to worship my God in spite of whatever stupid decree that you guys are signing. What about the lions? God will protect me.
Yep.
And if I die, then that's better than living with whatever crap you guys want to endure. I mean, I don't understand why people are so afraid, because constantly God's either sparing his people in the Bible or you end up going to him.
And rewarded,
I
yeah.
won't wear a mask.
Right. Right. Pure blood. Amen. I'll drink to that. So,
Yes,
where
sir.
does Alagabal get his name? This is where it gets fun. So again, this is the Cult of Sol Invictus book. A different etymology was put forward by F. Lenormant in the article of Sol Elagabalus, in which he identifies the god Gabal of Emesa to be with the old Chaldean god of fire, as above, so below, yeah, whose name is written Bilgi, or pronounced Jibal. According to Lermont's hypothesis, the god Jabal had already been worshipped in the pre-Semitic peoples, including the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and later adapted by the Chaldo-Babylonian religion. So, okay, there's something here. From there, he began to be known by other Semites. Lenormant cites inscriptions that Jabal means the god of the black stone.
There it is.
The god of cosmic fire. Of the flame of sacrifice. There's a flame over the all-seeing eye. Okay, all right, all right. I see where you're going with this. And the black stone is allegedly a triangle. Or the domestic hearth. So again, our agriculture. It would therefore not be surprising if this fire god, once transported to Syria, was identified there with the sun. Now, as somebody who keeps insisting with me and I keep begging, like I've asked him, have you watched any shows? No, I only watched that one interview you do with that one lady. So you haven't watched any shows. So how do you know everything I've been implying about Trump is not true? Because the eagle connects with Babel. This is what did he just say? Transported to Syria. The Antichrist has to be Syrian. Symbolism, symbolism, symbolism. You know what I'm saying? Both these etymologies have a certain acceptable basis, but the hypothesis put forward by Fuller and Teal is included in Lenormant's article is also worthy for consideration. According to them, El Gabal means simply the god former or creator, derived from the Syrian root Gabal, meaning to end, complete, and by extension form create. So beginning and end, right? No other etymology is so good agreement with the idea as the 3rd century Syrians of Emesa concerning their god Sol Alagabal. But the question remains whether this hypothesis really explains the form of the name. El Gabul or El Jibal would fit better with El Gabal. These considerations, however, have a relative value since the Syrian form of Alagabal was handed down directly. This last etymology seems more probable to Rivel. Furthermore, it does not exclude the other two. The root Gabal, from which the Arabic word for mountain derives, has given rise to the formation of the verbal stems meaning either massive or exalted or to exalt. In Syriac Arabic, the verb Gabal, Jabal, is used in the Greek, can't pronounce the word, in the sense form or manipulate, which explains the Hebrew meaning of complete, define, limit, or border, and in Syrian form of create. Thus, the sun god and the heights of the mythology of Canaan to be related to the god who is maker or creator. Now, what do we read in the Bible? Again, read etymology. So we're getting anthropology here. And what do we get a lot of times? They made groves unto Ashtaroth and Baal. And where did they usually do this? In the high places. So it's not just me. No. What does the Bible describe these practices as when we're reading about groves unto Ashtaroth and Baal and these practices that are grieving God's heart? We're now reading etymology of talking about, so now you're saying this is a creator God, right? So there's things in the Bible that are already aligning with this thing that ended up parasitically interfusing itself with Christianity, right? So they already had this all the way back to Babel. So by the time Christ came along, so like Addis, the original story is he died. Christ was resurrected. Then they suddenly started changing that mythos of saying, well, Addis has to come back to life because that just looks stupid now. So this started to become very popular, even with Odin. What did Odin get rid of? His eye for wisdom. He hung from a tree for 3 days once the mythos of Christ started reaching their region, right? So this is what I'm saying, folks, is that even as they're migrating, it always is constantly mixing with, that sounds similar to this, right? So when you have Catholics coming along saying, yes, it is very similar, isn't it? Would you like to pay taxes and homage to our church? I mean, that's the original Jehovah's Witness. Get off my lawn.
It's like that in Talladega Nights with Ricky Bobby, where he they're going to break his arm because he won't say he likes crepes. And they're like, dude, they're just the really thin pancakes. And he's like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, I'm cool with that. It's like,
I'm down with it.
yeah, that's how they're tricking him. They're like, no, 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 it's still, here. You cool with that?
Dude.
Yeah, they are just thin pancakes too.
They really are.
They're just a fancy name. And a little bit different texture, but nothing extreme.
And we don't even say it in the right
The crepes?
so like, you gotta like have
Equally
that
delicious.
smug French. So why even say it,
Who cares about the French? I have UK roots for the most part. I came over with William the Conqueror. We'd always diss on the French. It's actually funny. I got kicked out from something when I dissed on. Oh yeah, it was Facebook. I wrote there was no swear words or anything, but because I dissed on the French, they said I was against community standards. I was like, man, my ancestors would be ticked right now.
Soft.
We dissed the French for breakfast. The religious reforms of the Emperor Elagabalus, the etymology of Elagabal, the invincible sun god of Emesa, probably originated in Canaan. What did we say before? Pagan priests, Canaan, Canaan-Baal, and retained his ancient nature as the personification of the male principle in the fertile warmth. He was called Elagabal, Elagiabel, and Heliogabal. Heliocentricism, where we get the globe earth from. So you want to know what those two pillars of Freemasonry are? Hermeticism, celestial alchemy, how to become your own guide, as above, so below, solving the mysteries of the universe and trying to understand the mind of God, and heliocentricism, where you make your own world the way you see fit. Do as thou wilt. Become your own God. And in the middle, you become your own strength and wisdom. That's what that all essentially equals. Right. So I'm over here like, I don't want to go inside of a lodge because this is I want to go Gideon on this thing here, man.
Yeah.
El Gabal, the god of Gabal, the most plausible etymologies are the following. Gabal is considered to originate from the Semitic word Gabal, which means the massive or exalted. From Gabal is derived the Arabic word for mountain, as its name in various mountainous regions and cities or heights. For example, the high country of the south of the Dead Sea is called Gebalim. The well-known city of Byblos was formerly called Gabal, undoubtedly because it is situated on a mountain. The same root is found in the place name Gabala, a city situated in Byblos on the Syrian coast, not far from Laodicea. These are some biblical things we've been hearing about, right? We're just like, So, in the first book of Kings, there is reference to a country of the Giblites, which is now in Djebel, north of Beirut, not far from Byblos. It may therefore be assumed that the term Gabal in Aramaic Syriac was used to indicate high places. Thus, the god of Gabal may have been the god of high places of the heights. His cult and his principal symbol, the conical black stone, are complete agreement with those of the high places mentioned in the Old Testament. The sun god Elagabal must therefore have had his places of worship in the mountains before he was worshipped in Emesa in the valley of Orontes.
The conical black stone, or what was put in the back of the chariot, the conical black stone, and paraded through town. What? Come on.
You know what I'm saying, dude? So now we have a company by the name of BlackRock?
Yeah. Could it be a cult?
What?
Did you pick a worse name?
It has to be a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, we were just picking names. You could have went with blue, red.
Right.
I mean, name a color. Magenta rock. I mean.
No, black.
So the other thing I found interesting is whether you're Muslim, you have the kippah, you have the Jewish yarmulke cap, and you have the same thing over within the Catholic Church. So where did that come from? So during oh gosh, I always forget the name of those things. But with Carthage going to war with Rome, Carthage was big into following Baal. So one of the things that they were doing is saying, oh, if our gods aren't going to freaking solve our problem, we will worship their gods. If you basically turn against the Carthaginians, essentially, I'm forgetting the official name for the war, but we will worship and we will bring them over to us. And this is where Cybele from Northern Africa came into Rome. So whether it was again equivalent, it's Babel, but it's like, well, it sounds similar. Well, it's like, well, now we're just going to induct this over because we made some deal during a war, right? So you're constantly intermingling and interchanging, and then you're over here like, well, we already have a statue. Well, what do you want me to change to it? I don't know. Try to make some spiky crown thing, make it look some okay. Do you
It's
see
just
what I'm saying?
like changing your religion all willy-nilly like seems funny to me. Just like, yeah, well, these guys came in, they had a pretty good argument, so
Hey,
yeah.
The Punic
Punic Wars.
Wars.
Thank you. I knew it
Yeah,
began with a
yeah.
P. I was going to say Peloponnesian, but I was like, no, that's not it.
43-year war.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a minute.
off and on, I think, right?
Yes, it was like
It was
three
times.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. The echoes of Mithraism around the world. And again, I'm loving because I'm reading these books. Both authors are over here going, it sounds similar to them, but it has nothing to do with the secret cults of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it does. I think this is one of the ones, I can't remember the author's name. I think it was Mayan, Mayan, something with Sol Invictus. Always trying, or Mithra. I think it was Mithra. But she wrote, I think it was a she, we have already touched upon the links between Mithraism and Islamic Sufism. Oh, so there's a connection here because the Catholic Church founded Islam. The Mithraic mysteries exerted their influence on the other religions and cultures as well. The Mithraic influence on Catholicism, says Christianity, but let's fix that, is the subject of much good historical research. Much recommendations are included in the further reading section of the back of this book. Another religion that was much influenced but is rarely mentioned is Yazidism. Nevertheless, there is one good book by Tawfiq Wabi. Again, check the back of the book. Mithraism has been suggested to be influenced the Greek Hermetic magic. Oh. As the influence of Mithras on the Western culture in general, as the influence of the British study history, and the chapter in which we explore its connotations. And so for me, I said Hermetic, you say. Mithra has connections with Hermetic, like the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life, where I told you before, has Corona at the very top, a spiked crown, just like they put on Christ's head to mock him, hanging him on a tree, a symbol of Tammuz, right? Mangled his body up, his legs crisscrossed. You see what I'm saying? They tried to invert it. They tried to mock him with this thing. And again, Hermes was known as the god of healing with the Caduceus staff. Heal thyself, healer. Symbolism, symbolism, symbolism. So Mithra was known as the god of the sun, justice, contract, and war. And it was Zoroastrian Iran. So, what are we honestly going over in Iran and Iraq and all this stuff? You'll notice, I think it was the beginning of this year, around the same time as who died? Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed, Apollo Belief, right? And I laughed because I know Sylvester Stallone. He is in the club. I've seen him do the gestures. And he posted a photo when Apollo and Rocky were training and when they were fighting. But he put this particular photo after his death, and the light was coming down, and it had the symbol of like the Orthodox like Jesus shining down onto the ring upon Apollo. Now, which is interesting. It's interesting because in the Terra Octony, Mithras slays the bull of heaven. The bull is supposed to be representing of God. And Apollo, Apollyon, is there some sort of a connotation in the beginning of 2024 that I don't know, but we also had the solar eclipse in what year? 2024. That just again, I think it was
It
the
lines up.
32nd day of the year, and then I think 32nd day of the year, the 33rd was when we started bombing over in Iran and Iraq. It was just some interesting things. We read it as headlines. I'm over here going, is there a little bit something more nefarious going on behind the scenes? And I knew he had to do a potty break. I could see him swerving back and forth. Oh, there he is. Okay.
He's out.
The chariot races were the run of the honor of Dios Sol Invictus. So Dios Volt, Dios Sol Invictus, the reign of Aurelian's again, cult of Sol Invictus. Just Volt, when we're always saying God wills it in essence, or the cleric, oh, just Volt, God wills it. So when you're saying that phrase, and the Crusades. Does that have any connotation with Christ? No, well, it was a different culture. No, no, no. It connects with Sol Invictus. What I say about soldiers before, even though I think somebody wrote a mean comment on whatever clip you did share from that. And I'm like, you don't have to agree with me, and that's totally fine. I could be 1000% wrong. I'm throwing that out there, okay? But isn't it kind of weird that a lot of people are getting into combat scenarios, but they're being used by the system? And they're being used as mercenaries, and they're not actually protecting people. They're protecting interests, but they're being told you're a good patriot if you come on, come on.
Yep.
The origin of Dies Natalis Invicti as the feast or the birth of the sun of the winter solstice is explained in various ways by the historians of religion, most of whom reject a Roman origin. Novell attempted to determine the source from which it was borrowed. His study of the winter solstice celebrations in Syria and Egypt led him to conclude that neither was the source of Roman celebration. A distinction must therefore be made between the feast day of Natalis Invicti and of the other celebrations held in the circus in honor of Deus Sol Invictus. Now, on the Vatican News, they were talking about how what's going on right now with the winter solstice does connect with Sol Invictus, not Christ. And something interesting is, like, again, 12th day of Christmas was January 6th. And when they're opening up all these portals, apparently the last one's supposed to open up at a prison on January 5th, the day right before the 6th. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like at 10 p.m. at night, midnight maybe, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, come on. There's a reason these people do the things they do. Just Sol Invictus in the circus games, and again, circus, if you're going by, I think is Paul Stubbs, Nephilim look like clowns. He was saying that the circus ring, Star David, like the ring was allegedly the ring of Solomon, and it has the star Remphan on it, and it could control everything around you. Helios would ride his chariot from east to west, controlling all the chaos around you, in essence, being the master in the center, the ringmaster. So again, chariot races. So when we're watching Ben-Hur, something makes me kind of wonder if we should re-examine that movie too. I don't know, but because Dis Sol Invictus in the circus games were especially Roman. The priests of the sun god were pontifices. Pontifice. Okay, that sounds Catholic. The celebrations on the 25th of December consisted mainly of races between chariots, the protection of which had been the responsibility of the sun god since ancient times. The great care by Aurelian to form the content of the cult is more the indication that he wished to stress in Roman character. Seen in the light, it seems to us that the feast of Natalis Invicti in Rome must be seen not only as the anniversary of the birth of the sun, but should also be related to the anniversary dedication of the Temple of the Sun. This time was chosen because it was the most dramatic moments of the sun's course. For the Romans, the winter solstice was much more important than the summer solstice. So, we're doing it to worship Jesus. Okay. So, you worship on Sunday. You worship Christ pagan doppelganger in December. And then you never forget what happened in America on 9/11, which was Coronation Day for Kings in ancient Israel, which represents the Emerald Tablets. Do you see what I'm saying? Is this symbolism in Syria? No, it is in America. Who is the most predominant one out of most of the countries? It is Europe and America that emphasize Christmas, right?
Yep.
If anything, America probably a little bit more because we are commercialized very much so in the American society. So, and again, Tammuz is affiliated with regeneration, reincarnation, as we can see here. As I was saying before, this is supposed to be, I think it's similar to those the eagle birds that are carrying the same thing. You ever see the one in Ecuador or in the Babylonian thing? They have these falcon-like heads carrying the same little egg thing.
Yes.
So if those were fallen angels somehow, whatever, but then what's Tammuz doing? I'm bringing that back. Hermes bag, purses, ladies. If you've ever been purchasing that does connect with Tammuz. You see him carrying this little thing. Allegedly, the pine cone represents the third eye,
Right.
the pineal gland. When it sprouts outward, it's supposed to be, oh, you just ascended. It's like the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life.
I
Is that when
like
it's
how Assassin's Creed in the first game played off of that with Apple of Eden is kind of what they made the pine cone.
okay?
It was cool. It was like Mithra and Juno and people like that in it.
Dude, the symbolism of the Assassin's Creed logo is. I did that one time. I was like, it's the freaking skull.
Oh yeah, they know what they're doing.
I have to wonder, is that really fiction? Because what is the first? I played a little bit in the first one because I went over to my buddy's house and they were showing all those genes, like right, to bring back the
Yep, you have
and
to
it was
like
making me think of
prepare it.
Nathan Reynolds with the whole assassin thing going on. He's another Christian
Oh,
guy. It was making me go, I wonder, MK Ultra. You know what? Too much. I don't want.
it is.
It's more.
You go into like the animus is what they call it, and your mind is controlled for another reality where you're the
Yes.
assassin. Yeah,
Yeah, and if you're gonna do that end times, right? If you want the demon
absolutely.
to take full control, but it's easier when there's full consent, right? Because why would witches and all these other people be gravitating toward that so easily? Because they think they have control. Or again, right? So if it's symbiotic, it's just like just like the Venom movies.
Yep.
We work together and cohesive. Whereas if there's resistance, this is where you get somebody that's controlled by stuff like that, and you want to bring them to Christ because you're over here going, this is not consensual here. That's my 2 cents, but I'm just saying you get a little bit of the I want that, and then you get the other one where it's over here like, please, anybody get this out of me now.
Mm-hmm.
Might see that in Hollywood sometimes, and this is why they had to off somebody because they're kind of getting tired of the deal that they made.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is just some more proof when I was saying earlier about Dagon and grains. According to myth, Mithra was born bearing a torch, Statue of Liberty, beside a sacred stream and under a sacred tree, a child of the earth itself. Sure, that's a coincidence there. Was Mithras born in a cave, just like Christ? This Mithra or Mitra, sun god, is believed to be the mediator between God and man. So, hold up. Isn't Christ our mediator?
Yeah,
Not
I don't
Mithra?
think we need any more. We got Jesus. It's good.
Right. So would it not behoove us as Christians to say, wait a minute, there's something else out here that says it's the mediator between God and man? Should we not kind of examine what he believes? So, because that sounds kind of counterfeit, right? Sounds just like our guy, but it's not our guy. So we should probably be aware of who this is so we are not deceived.
Yep.
So between God and man, between the sky and the earth, again, another hermetic aspect here, it is said that Mithra, or the sun, took birth in the cave on December 25th. It is also the belief in the Christian world that Mithra, or the sun god, was born to a virgin, and he traveled far and wide. Also a virgin birth. Coincidence. Hermes, the son of Zeus and Maia, was born in a cave in Mount Cyllene in Arcadia. Hermes too? Okay, I'm seeing a similar mythos. You could say I'm wrong, but again, this is not wiki. This is like WWSUN University Education, Britannica, Beacon Journal. Again, I'm letting you
Yeah.
know. I'm not just some
Legit.
guy that's going, man, this wiki said this, so that's made that. Oh, well. No, you can vet it yourself. I'm picking up books too, as opposed to what other people say. You're not, I'm reading books all over. I got books all over. In the work of Julian himself, Attis, again, equivalent of Tammuz, the myth relates that being exposed near the birth, near the eddying stream of the river Gallus, he grew up like a flower. Like he was grown to be fair and tall. He was beloved by the mother of the gods, which would be Cybele. Mother of the gods.
He grew up
Plural.
like a flower.
Yeah, he was special.
Yeah.
From what I've read a lot about Attis, he sounds very, again, Adonis, Attis. I was over here again. I always compare and contrast, and I'm going, granted, a little different, but still, there's a little. Sounds special. And again, the month of Tammuz is
I
June.
have a hard time holding his hand up, kind of special.
I'm not going to venture that far. I was back then, but it suffice to say. So there's allegedly this mythos that, again, they were saying that she was the queen of the underworld and stuff like that, right? So she allegedly tried to concoct some sort of ceremony. And I'm thinking kind of like Stranger Things, maybe a tub ceremony, whatever. I don't know. And she tried to go to visit the underworld to meet Nimrod over there. This ceremony did not go as planned. She comes back into the throne room, and who is sitting on her throne in glee? Little Tammuz. And she is so upset with this scene that she's coming in. She's like, if I could have died and you weren't even mourning my absence. And so allegedly, she concocts a deal with the devil or, spirits and says, you can take my son and use him for whatever time or being, bring him back as, he'll be your avatar in essence. Just piecing together from what I pieced in a lot of mythos. Allegedly, this deal was accepted, and so she reigned for about 5 to 10 years, and then that was the end of the unholy trinity of Babel until now. Hence, we get the Ouroboros, the figure 8 over the magician, or the infinity logo, the snake consuming its tail. So you already had Nimrod, you had Tammuz, so that's half your little circle thingy, and then you're going to go back into Tammuz to get back to Nimrod, right? So that it comes full Ouroboros. So you have to have the original and then go back to complete.
Yep.
That is what I think.
All these things happen, though.
Right.
With their we don't even we argue whether there is or isn't a God, and then these people are like, no, here's exactly what was happening with the gods. They were fighting, and this is how the battle went down.
Yeah, they think they know it exact.
I'm not lying that some of it could be embellished, but it's like, you really mean to tell me that some humans are not seeing these gigantic individuals duking things out, are not going to write down what they're seeing? And
Absolutely are.
right. And again, some of it could be embellished, but some of it is we weren't there, but it was did you just see? Yeah, I'm gonna chisel that one down. And you get the stories of the Greeks. You get the story again, some of it giants, some of it angels, some of it, and by the time we get to I don't know, 200, 300, 400 years later, you don't see them as much anymore, but you still get historical records. And again, this theory makes more sense as opposed to where they're saying, oh, we're just missing 1,000 years of our history. No, if anything, I think the theory from the movie End of the Harvest, which I didn't like the dispensationalist aspect where, God comes down and he goes with his people, blah, blah, blah. But I did like the theory he pitched. He says, if a day is as 1,000 years and 1,000 years is as a day, who's to say that's not going to be 6,000 years of, Earth as on life as we know it, and then the 1,000 years we reign with Christ as the day of rest, right? The marriage feast or whatever. And then you have the little season. So then, 1,000 years is as a day. So then you literally have the 7-day week, in essence, or before we reboot, restart, right?
Yep.
And I was over here going, that makes a lot of sense, because God doesn't just throw these dates out here randomly. He's always throwing it out there intentionally, as these guys are doing it. But again, they're doing it for evil, whereas Christ is your God. He's already I already have it all outlined. They can do whatever they want. They can plan whatever they want. I have the last say. I am vengeance. I'm happy with that. You want to destroy his temple? Go for it. He's going to avenge tenfold, more than anything I could ever do. I just want to get up there. I have a couple of bourbon shots waiting for me at the celestial marriage feast.
Yeah, we're gonna see it.
I have a couple of requests. So in the rituals that took place in the subterranean caves, blah, 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 blah. Actually, did I already read this? Yeah, we can skip that. Sufi, Heliodrama, Sunrunner. So again, Sun, Mithras. In the ritual meal, the initiate of the grade would sit close by Mithras himself, father, on the offering and exchange the wine and grapes that takes place between Mithras and the sun after the bull is slain. They have a scene that looks very similar to the Last Supper. So when I was watching the Olympics, they're going, oh, look, they're mocking the Last Supper. I'm over here going, did you know that Mithra has kind of a Last Supper too? Huh? You have no idea who that is. Never mind. Go back as you were. And again, allegedly the big blue guy on there is supposed to represent Dionysus. That's an equivalent of Nimrod. So I was like, okay. All right, sure. So the wine, the cupbearer in Sufism, the one who pours the divine wine, the mystical wine that comes forth from the friend, intoxicate the Sufis with the divine ecstasy, while the wine comes from Mithras, the cup from the sun. The sun becomes the vessel. the highest grade of the Father, and the Pater, again, this is Catholic, there was the Magian elder in Sufism, who was Mithras' early representative, teacher of all other grades. He would then pour the wine of love into the cup, the heart of the lions, lion heart, and other grades via the Sunrunner, and provide the guidance initiates into finally die before you die and overcome the ego. The symbols of the grade of Roman Mithraism were the staff, the bowl, the straight sickle, and the red caps. The Liberation Bowl was the performance of ceremonies, and the sickle and staff were symbolic weapons of Saturn. It is worth noting that the symbols of the Persian Sufis are the similar bowl, cap, and the axe, combining the straight sickle with the staff. So, again, something that I found interesting because they're over here doing this very similar ritual. Again, a lot of Protestants, what we do, I don't know about you guys, but when we would go to, a lot of times we'd go to church, when they're having the communion, what are we doing? All right, let's read that little passage from First, Second Corinthians, and we're over here remember him dying on the cross as we go around and we hand out so you're sitting there and you're just thinking like, oh yeah, I remember all that pain, and all that sweat, and all that blood, and all that beating that he took for me. Oh yeah, thank you Jesus for dying for me and stuff like that. When in actuality, it was a marriage ceremony, right? Is that Dad picked the young man, blah blah blah. Here's bride and my daughter. If you accept this young man who just drank of this cup of wine, you are now accepting of the son that I have selected for you. And if she chose to drink of it, the young man would go back, add on to his dad's house to induct in a new bride. And he'd probably return within about a year. Right? A year or two. Been almost 2,000 years since Christ left. So, what does he say? I go to prepare a place for you in my Father's house. So, in contrast, Catholicism and a lot of Protestants, we're looking at this as some sort of Magian elder ceremony, right? Dying to the ego. Because what are we doing ultimately? As opposed to saying we are the bride of Christ, we have confidence with the word, right? Because what is it saying in Revelation 18:23? The voice of the bridegroom and the groom and the bridesmaids was heard no longer in thee. Right?
Yep.
So
the light of a lamp.
Yes. So if we're not lighting the lamp, we're not speaking the word. Why? So we're beating ourselves up. Do you see what we're doing already with the ritual? And I'm blaming Protestants. Okay. So if any Catholics who are still gotten this far, we're doing the same thing because we've already bastardized the ceremony of its true meaning and symbolism, what Christ was trying to show us, right? Because he calls us ecclesia, he calls us bride of Christ. He's constantly using terms of either soldiers or a marriage, right? Those are the two things that he's always incorporating when he's talking about his ecclesia. And as a bride of Christ, we should be interpreting this of how we are supposed to be thinking. Whereas if we're, looking at it as a ritual, we're going through the motions and we don't know why we're doing the things we do. This is the reason why when Joshua was going through the promised land, they would build little shrines and stuff like that, or little altars to remember and commemorate what was done here, so that when you went through past this area with your child, you'd be like, this is when God gave us this day, blah, blah, blah. And you would explain it again and again and again to every generation to keep that symbolism alive, or the meaning of that day alive, right? In contrast, just do the traditions. Well, why? Don't ask questions. Just pay me my money.
Yep.
This is a problem. And this is what Christ did. He gets after Catholicism, Judaism, again, Utri, Kabbalah Utri, and Freemasonry. In Matthew 23, he says, and call no man your father, pater, which is just something I read, again, Catholic Church, upon earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. So that's Catholicism, taken out one statement. Then, but call ye no man called Rabbi, for one is your Master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. Okay, woo! And neither be ye called masters, master masons, for one is your Master, even Christ. What is the Master? Well, Christ was the Word made flesh. So what's your Master? I'm submitting to the Word. What is the Word? It is the Creator God's Word. Everything He's ever said. How did He create the heavens and the earth? Spoke it into existence.
Mm-hmm. And they're over here calling their person who literally is supposed to be the Holy One to teach them the Bible Father.
Mm-hmm. It's like I think it was The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, and he was most of the people he meets as a kid are Masons, but it's a fun series nevertheless. Because one of them I think was Leo Tolstoy, and there was one where the Orthodox Church, and he was over here saying like, "No, I don't even want to go to the near those guys." He says, "How can you hold a candle up to the sun and claim that you understand who God is?" And I was over here like, there's something paraphrasing to that effect, and I was over here like, I like this guy. I like the way he's thinking because it's true. You're over here trying to make God such a small little thing, and is over here like, who gives you the authority to define what God is to the people? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We
Absolutely.
should all be ingrained in the word, as opposed to what the Catholic Church was doing, persecuting people who would start studying on their own. Because it's in Latin. I'll
Yeah,
explain
you
it to
don't
you.
know.
Take my word for it. I want to know what it says. I want it personal, right? A relationship. I want it personal.
Yep.
Now, that's a problem. And I don't want all the rituals. I don't want all the religion because Christ is against religion, right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
and again, I think this is a Catholic site, if I remember correctly. Roman Mithras was perhaps the greatest rival in early Christianity, greatest parasite, for many reasons, as well as being a popular pagan religion practiced by the Roman army. Mithraism had many similarities to Christianity, Catholicism. Mithras was born of a virgin, remained celibate, his worship involving baptism and partaking of bread marked with a cross, symbol of Tammuz, and a wine, sacrificial blood, just what we just read, and held Sunday sacred. And Mithras was born on December 25th. Again, this is their site. Mithraists called themselves brother and were led by a priest called father, a pater. Saint Peter, Saint Patar. The symbol of the father was a staff, a hook sword, and a ring and hat, a red Phrygian cap again. And who's wearing red Phrygian caps today?
Fez.
The red Fez, the red revolutionaries, the MAGA.
The Shriners.
Yes. Another one.
I
Yep.
feel like they have that sideways infinity sign you were talking about on their hat a lot too.
Yes.
The
One thing I've noticed several lodges, like they have the standard red cap, but then per lodge, they'll have like the crescent sword, but then every lodge will have additional symbols per lodge to affiliate. It's very similar to houses in medieval times. It's
okay.
like, oh, that's the standing black lion, or that's the the seahorse, fill in the blank of whatever house.
Yep. You could read it and see the symbols and be like, oh, it came from here.
Right. Right. Again, where did that come from? Because my birth mother
Not
was saying,
Jesus.
right, yes. My birth mother was saying, like, wouldn't it be nice to kind of have somebody, do all our family crests of all of our families, blah, 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 and have them put all, I'm like, I wouldn't be too keen on it because, again, I understand symbols, and I'm over here like, nah, I understand its history, sure, but to have some sort of crest hanging on my wall kind of makes me think of graven images, and I'm over here like, yeah, it's enough
Yep.
to know that I got some royal blood in me. Dude, I don't need all that other stuff. And even then, royal, what is royal? Let's be. Um, as I was saying before, the pine cone shows up in the Vatican, and it also looks very similar to the Mithra hat. The Bacchus staff has pine cones on it, and they just said it looks like a hook sword, a ring, a hat, a staff, right? All I'm saying is pater, father, brother. Oh, brother so and so, and you shave your head. I wouldn't be surprised if that had something to do with any of this. Like maybe it was you let the light, the sun hit it, and it'd give you extra. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I read a whole book of beards and men, and I learned a lot. Like, if you had a clean shaven body, apparently you were more pure. If you had a beard, like some of them would get fake beards, just to put it on makes you look wise or something.
I mean, ancient tribes went all the way back to, doing their hair and beards and all that certain ways. So why wouldn't it be that way?
Right, right. And again, these are just several sites just to confirm what I said about Dispatar, Peter. With Cernunnos, even Julius Caesar made comment about Cernunnos and Dispatar sounding like the Roman god of the underworld. So it's not me. You have a very prominent gentleman that we do know existed. where we get the month of July from. So he's even stating, and he comes from what region? Italy. What's Italy? It's very similar, close to the Catholic Church. So again, I'm showing you the anthropology. I'm showing you context of what's going on in history. Dispatar, we just found out, means father. So you're saying that St. Peter is a set apart father. He's not a father. Well, upon this rock I will build my. Allegedly, where he said that was at the base of Mount Hermon. And if that is the case, again, coordinates 33, he was essentially saying it at a place that is means forbidden or cursed.
All saints?
Hmm?
Aren't we all saints?
Yes, all saints. Okay, so as I was saying before with the Venn diagram, and that's when you have the three circles, you have all these things overlapping on top of each other, and you have ideologies. You can put this anywhere you want. Ideologies, you have institutions, and you have the individual. You as the individual are born into a world that is run by institutions, run by ideologies. And again, you could say, I'm a niche follower, right? Or I follow whatever Shakespearean is my life. Whatever I read about this scholarly individual. This is how I base my life philosophy. Somebody's very smart, very prominent. He figured out the mysteries of the world for me. That microwave philosophy is my life vision, and I'm going to defend it. Okay, that's fine. The institution. Well, I got my degree from such and so prestigious fill in blank, or the Catholic Church, the institution, blah, 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 and you can't criticize it. So, as the individual, you start becoming identifying with this, you start identifying with that, you start defending the adjectives of the institution or the ideologies that you were groomed in as you grew up, right? And what is Christ saying, or God want us to do? Come out of her, my people. So he wants you to be set apart. Be in the world, but not of the world. You know what I'm saying? Don't make those things your identity. You're in the world, but you're temporary. You're passing through. So a saint is someone who's set apart. You're in the world, but you're not involved. You're not rooted in the world. You're rooted in the word, and you're ready to pull out at a moment's notice. This is why the
Like,
sleeping
why would
bridesmaid
we not just delete anything that Peter wrote to basically anybody that he called saints? You know, like
or
he
Paul
starts half of his books off as like, to the saints of, like,
or the,
well,
the the church and such. Yeah, right, right. And again, for what Catholicism did is we're going to make it one person is sacred. One person is the intermediator. And this is what I would say is going into sin, because what is sin ultimately? It's to miss the mark, right? And if you're going by the original root word for Allah, that was the name of a moon god. So what is sin? Ultimately, sin is an obstacle that is blocking your way so you can't hit the mark. It's a substitute, it's something blocking, it's an idol. And that's ultimately what this comes down to. So you're putting somebody, vicar means substitute of Christ. So you're saying, whoa, well, hold up, boy. Got the Pope right before Christ. What?
yeah.
What does Christ say? No man gets to the Father but by me. Now,
By me.
I'm trying to emphasize for folks, as I think I did before with God's been divorced, you have to understand he is the Word, because no man gets to the Father but by me. Did you abide by my word? Did you obey it? Did you make it applicational? Because repenting is fine, application is paramount. You know what I'm saying? Because you read the whole book of Acts, it says, were you baptized in repentance or were you baptized in the Holy Spirit? What? What's the difference? Well, and again, they explain it in the Bible. Don't take my word for it. There's a reason they have that there. And again, I'm not saying we have to have a set standard, but it's like you should be discipled, right? Enough so you can say, I've seen you get rid of this former thing in your life. Because as I was witnessing to you, I know this was something that was part of your life. You were part of this alphabet community. You were part of the tarot community, fill in the blank.
Yep.
But now I've seen you actually strive to become a better disciple of Christ and live it. So now I'm going to baptize you in the Holy Spirit. And in essence, you were given the gift of the Holy Spirit of discernment so you can further in the word. Now, I'm not saying this is like an immediate thing, but I'm saying when you're going to early church, this was what was so significant about that is you're over here going, I'm so proud of you. This baptism is significant because I'm seeing you make that change. Like Zacchaeus, he tries to climb the tree. Again, I find it ironic. These people are trying to climb the little tree with all these little tears on the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life. And he's like, I just want to climb a tree to see Jesus. I just want to see him. Just like the equivalent of the woman just want to touch his garment. That's all I want to do. I want to look in that direction. And once he brings him home, he says, I'm going to give double to everybody. Now, here's the thing. We never read about that aftermath thing, but think for a moment. You've been gypped by this guy. You've had a hunch for a couple of years. I've been gypped, but if I say anything, the Roman guy is standing behind him with the sword. It's probably going to slit my throat, right? And this guy suddenly
Yep.
comes up to you and says, I'm giving you double for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been ripping you off. That's like your IRS agent coming knocking on your door and saying, yeah, you remember when you filed for your taxes last year? I'm giving you like $3,000 back because blah, blah, blah. And I was editing around your paperwork so I could screw you over and put a little bit to the side for myself. When you're giving that back to me? Yeah, sorry about it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What is this doing? I want to know, why are you doing it? It's because this guy called Christ. This is what I'm saying. This is Christianity wise. That's what your life is starting to do is you've never done that before for me or anybody. Why are you doing that now? So does that make a little bit more sense with Saint?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Saint is trying to revere something. The other one is saying, I'm going to respectfully bow out because it's not about me. It's about him.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take my word for it, Sir Nonus. Roman Catholicism and Islam revere the moon and sun god. Many images of the Catholic Virgin Mary show her standing over a crescent moon, and there are many sun worship images through the Catholic Church, including St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican, which is part of their little sigil Lucifer thing that's going to be opening up. The Eucharist wafer represents the sun god, which is placed in the crescent moon in the moon strands, representing their sexual union. So the moon, queen of the heavens, and then you have the sun coming in the center. That is copulation. Again, going right back to the womb, with which we began with the slides. And the rebirth of their son, Tammuz. Islamic mosques have the crescent moon representing the moon god of the star. And for the sun god, many times you see pictures with the sun cradled in the Islamic moon representing their sexual union. And again, Sir Nonus, somehow they have... So we're getting over here in Ireland, where they had this most popular, right? The Celtic tribes. And Cernunnos means roughly the horned one, connects with the Wicca. Cern is who gave us our internet. Inter, place for two more corpse.
Mm-hmm.
Net, hold something woven together. When you look at the globe, why is it a net like a web? What does he say to Peter? Come with me, I'll make you fishers of men. To pull us out from this horrible fate. Again, if the Giants come back and they have to have avatars, what's all the movies? Like the new one coming out with Chris Pratt next year. That was made by the Russo brothers. Whatever, they're having some kind of... Again, when you see a trailer, you'll be immediately like, oh, this is what Brand was talking about. But apparently there's some kind of thing where it's like the robot war. And, oh, it was wrong for us to go to war against the robots or whatever. A lot of transhumanism movies with robots, they're pushing the agenda. Don't go against the robots. Don't go against the robots. What's Musk pushing?
Yeah, robots.
AI will give us universal income to all. We are summoning the demon with AI. So via republicanism, we're going to accept digital communism, which is going to be controlled by demonic forces.
Matt and I have both agreed if the robots do our laundry and dishes, we're buying one.
Oh I hope you have deactivate on standby, or you have
Yes.
you're gonna have that big Terminator heavy gun.
We'll be ready.
But you'll see both Jesuits and Masons doing the X for Osiris. Why? Because they have hope that Nimrod will come back. Now we have these two ankhs that he clutches in his hands, the ankhs of life, right? The wombs of life to be reborn, rebirthed. This is the equivalent of the Ouroboros snake, right? Just clutching in both hands. You hold the power to come back. And Musk is doing it. The occultist Aleister Crowley, who was nicknamed the Beast, is doing it. They don't do these things for no reason, folks. This is, again, they have Christ, allegedly, carrying a sheep over his arms, but he's holding it in X pattern. And this is what I'm always telling folks. Don't freak out every freaking time you see this kind of stuff. But the thing is to be aware of it. So the thing is, it's kind of like equivalent. I was watching an old Daniel Boone show, right? And there's a thing where he was over here going, I know you're half Indian. We've been walking around in the woods. I'm offering you dinner, and you're saying you're not hungry. One says, I know you'd be hungry. But the reason an Indian would not be accepting food from me is because you're planning a mischief. Right? So
Can't
again,
trust you.
it's things like that. You sit at the table and you're over here going, okay, we're about to have a red wedding scenario. Why would you think that? Well, because you're wearing armor, my friend. And usually, if you're wearing armor at a wedding feast, that's not a good sign because you're not one of the guards, you're one of the guests. So why are you wearing armor? You know what I'm saying? So be wary because your adversary, the devil, walketh about as a roaring lion. So that you're not just going in there like a gullible idiot. It could be a church, right? Or whatever.
Absolutely.
You're aware of it, but you have to kind of, again, be frugal, weigh it on scales, talk about it more frequently. So if your pastor or somebody else is doing it, and again, they could roll their eyes at you, it's okay. But you have to talk about it because when it becomes common knowledge, when the real baddies are doing it to you, you become immediately aware. You're hypersensitive to it. But you're not, again, you're not going to slap them the minute they do it. You're just over here saying, are you aware what that means, right? Because that's what a Christian's supposed to do, is saying, I used to do likewise, and I no longer do that, and I'm going to explain to you why, as opposed to not just paganism. Oh, you're part of the occult. Give me context. That's one thing I'm always emphasizing. Give context before you give judgment. And again, it's okay to judge, but you have to give a context as to why you're doing something. When Paul was calling out somebody, what did he specifically always lay out? I'm giving you his name. I'm telling you why he's wrong. And I'm giving you verses from the Old Testament as to why that's still not part, that's something we still don't do, right? I'm giving context and clarity, right? That's what you should always do. Context and clarity.
Are
Hmm.
we even sure it was like an apple? Like, I mean, how did we get apple as the poisonous
So
fruit?
allegedly, when you cut an apple in half, it maps out the sign of a pentagram.
Okay, well, that
Pentagrams
makes
were
sense.
affiliated with time travel. Now, whether or not that is true, I have to suspect something is there because in the Book of Giants, there is a chipped off from the stones, and translated, it roughly was these two giants. They know that they're going to be drowning in the flood, and they say the phrase, in Gilgamesh, blank, blank, our hope. Okay, so if Gilgamesh is allegedly an equivalent of Nimrod, and he's not born yet, the flood hasn't happened yet, and they're about to drown in the flood, who's Gilgamesh? Now, I read the Epic of Gilgamesh in college, not a Christian college, should, because it fills in a lot of blanks, but allegedly Gilgamesh experiences the flood, but doesn't die in it. He has a lot of remorse experiencing it, though. So how would you experience the flood?
From a ship. He's taken up, right?
Not necessarily a ship, but would it be fair to say, again, Rob Skiba saying that, because they're technically the Giants would have been his cousin. So would it be fair to say that Nimrod, in order to build the Tower of Babel, which Babel would translate either to one of two things, portal of the gods or gateway of the angels, that
Hmm.
if you made some sort of deal and you're over here saying, okay, so fallen angels, in order for you to teach me how to build a rocket, a tower, fill in blank with whatever it is that went down, you're going to show me how to do that or give me celestial intel. You want me to get your kids' bodies back? Yes. Okay. And we want you to understand what they went through. Maybe you could go back there and tell them it's going to be okay because we're going to have a plan for how to get them back. Okay? Draw the stars. And thus a conjuring occurred, and you would experience all this, and then you come back and you're over here going, oh, wow, you experienced all this? And yes, now I'm also symbiotically possessed with one of them as well. And this is what
Yeah.
the occult is still doing. And this is why you have the Hollywood Walk of Fame with what? Pentagram stars on that Hollywood Walk of Fame, right? I'm
Yep.
just saying this would give an explanation for that. And how would you bring back these giants, right? And Gilgamesh, our hope. The root server for all computers is known as AI, or is daemon, sorry. AI, A equals 1, I, A, 9. That's the ninth letter of the alphabet. AI equals X. Osiris rising. So your Osiris figure is now here. And how is he going to get you bodies back? Well, you just injected Warseed, Operation Warseed, with a little bit of meteorite. And now all you have left to do is amp up your 5G, which again we covered in another episode, and get your kids some bodies back within an international parasitical grid? I don't know, but it would bookend succinctly both Old Testament and New Testament, and it would explain how you get the giants to come back, right? You give them vessels. How are you going to do that? You trick humanity. And they're thinking, oh, so if I do that for you, I wear the red bracelet, the Kabbalah bracelet, and you're not going to hurt me. I'm not going to be receiving the fate of everybody else getting slain in the city because I helped betray them for you. That's right. Idiot. Right? I don't know, but it makes sense, and I almost kind of want to see that go down because that would be really cool. All right, let's speed this up a little bit. I already covered the Cybele thing. Ba. Skip that, skip that. So yeah, another interesting thing that I found was Mithras was born from the cosmic egg. Allegedly, the angels gave us cosmology, makeup for women, how to beautify themselves. The cosmos. Cosmos is all there ever was, ever will be, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, Carl Sagan. That sounds quite Tammuzing of you. But
I see
you
what you
ever
did
wonder?
there.
Yes, yes. But you ever wondered what this is? That is the cosmic egg or the fire, how to find that cosmic egg or that little pineal gland. The Orphic egg, where we allegedly get our hermaphroditic uh, ditic deity, Phanes, Protagonist. Can't even pronounce half the stuff. Eros, Cupid, right? Little bow, Cupid, Tammuz, they
Oh
look
yeah.
very similar. The Orphic egg is where we get the idea for Easter, Ishtar eggs,
Hmm.
right? Allegedly, they dipped them in blood, but somehow Meta finds that to be fact check worthy. I would just say, because what we see with Tammuz earlier, you would dip the pine cone, you dip it in a little bit of blood, you'd go around and you'd sprinkle it of blood over the. Who's to
Yeah.
say that this is not some part of the ceremony, right? Blood is always required in these sacrificial ceremonies, and people started catching on. Oh no, what would the kiddies say? And again, Ra, how the Egyptian god of Thoth was born. Thoth, equivalent of Hermes in the Egyptian. According to the one story, Thoth was born from the lips of Ra at the beginning of creation. Again, what did we see earlier with the snake lips or the mouth? Very similar to
Mm-hmm.
the all-seeing eye. I'm just saying, there's something definitely there for us to just cast that out and say, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. We'd be very foolish to say otherwise. Again, just explaining that is in the Catholic Church. So before Augustus, Anthony gave greater prominence to the worship of Sol by portraying the sun god on his coins. Hermes was allegedly the god of coinage. The representation of one dating to 43 BC, before Christ, being considered a precursor to the later sun syncretism. On his coin, the sun god is shown standing naked with an aureole and the wings of victory. He faces the left and has his right foot on a globe. In his right hand, he holds a caduceus staff. In his left, the horn of plenty, aka what we do for Thanksgiving. That horn of plenty, aka the fruit of the loom thing that doesn't exist.
The cornucopia.
Right? There's something. Don't tell me that doesn't exist. That's a big occult symbol. On his back hang the bow and quiver of Apollo. The shield of Mars stands behind him, and the truncated cone, black cone, in front of him, an eagle, just like America. The bird of Jupiter and Sol spreads his wings. The whole represents the concentration of all divine power, the sun god. This tendency became even more pronounced under Augustus, who made the very basis of religious policy true to the Republican tradition. He fought superstitio and distrusted the Eastern cults. Uh, Nevertheless, the favoring of the cult of Apollo, he laid his base as an extension of theology of the sun a few centuries later. And again, the eagle is between two pillars. And what does it say in Revelation when they cry out for peace and security?
Hmm. That
Hermes
won't be.
allegedly would trick souls into hell.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Isn't this a doctrine that would lead you to And isn't this kind of the thing that they're making us all believe in, whether it's the globe, whether it's you can become your own god, New Ager.
Hmm.
Just accept the aliens and they'll figure it out for you.
I love I love when cults start getting obsessed with the own cult that they're kind of a part of, and they're like, "You're not culty enough."
Right, right. It's like, at what point do you say, you know what? It's kind of looking a little culty. I'm gonna bow out, and then you're all of a sudden they say it's like TDS or something like that. Just like, no, no, no. I voted for the same thing twice, but this third time I said no, and you're over here like, well, why would you deny him? Are you anti-patriotic? Okay,
Yeah,
okay, hold up. Since when is this man affiliated with patriotism? Well, you voted for the baby killer. A what now?
yeah,
I mean, you're aware that Melania is pro that, right? You're aware that Trump's had several himself, right? No? Okay, no, okay.
yeah. You can only
Instant
imagine.
until they're using it, right?
Dude, it's ridiculous the way they try to justify it, and it's like, the more now that I've stepped back, the more I feel validated in my decision, because the way you guys are trying to argue with me, it's like that doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sorry. Vote
Hmm.
for Marduk or Bale.
Yeah, which evil do you want?
Right? Is there a between option? No. Hmm. I'll wear the blue ribbon. So, anyways, just again showing Sigil of Ashtaroth connecting with time travel, idolatry. The star at the top is an equivalent of the pineal gland, the conjoining of as above, so below. Found within the tree, a lot of giants were said to hang out near the trees. Druidism, what were they doing? They were imbuing the trees, right? Because they want to consult this giant energy. I had another thing with the pentagram that I saved today. It was talking about how wood and spirit interconnect. Considering we laugh at idols, but according to some of Gary Wayne's stuff, he was saying that possibly there was some way to have them actually talk demonically if you channeled it enough.
Yeah,
Whether that's true or not, it's just saying I think we laugh a lot at these ancient cultures, but if we have this, who's to say they couldn't have had something back then? I mean, we got Ouija boards that are still doing some weird things today.
I ain't gonna play with it. I know
I'm
that.
not going to play with it neither, but somebody believes enough. I mean, to say that it just doesn't exist is to deny that there's no energy or whatever connotation that would draw people to want to tamper into that, right?
absolutely.
But as Christians, we abstain because God's already said, listen, kid, sit down.
Well,
I don't want you to do that because you stick your fork in the socket, you're going to get electrocuted. What could I try? Why would you want to? Right?
Human
I
So,
mean, I'll
nature.
let you try, but
right.
it's gonna hurt.
Um, I can skip that. Already been going on for a bit. Oh, so yeah, Helios. I got this one. Helios, journey on a chariot during the day, and travel by a boat in the ocean at night, lightly a reflection of the Egyptian god, sun god Ra, Nimrod, sailing across the skies in his bark and through the body of the sky goddess Nut, to be reborn at dawn each morning anew. Both gods were known as the all-seeing
Hmm.
in Helios's case, right?
You're always allowed to be reborn anew.
Do you see though the similarities where he's over here going where Nicodemus coming to Christ by night? And how is one born again? By enter my mother's womb? Right? Right? So Nicodemus is hanging out in a crowd where it doesn't sound like he was officially initiated, right? Or he's trying to figure out what would the master say on this particular topic, or he's heard maybe a little bit in what is it to be reborn? Like really reborn. Because maybe he's heard about these other people doing these things, but he's seeing this guy do miracles. And the other guys are just talking hypothesis and theory and whatever. And this guy's actually doing something, right? Then it's different. So what is it to be born again, right? In their way,
Try to be all up in your mom.
like Nimrod. Don't worry, mom. We'll make a kid.
Yeah.
But again, it's
Weird.
inverted, it's perverse, it's
It
always
is
ugly.
very
Where,
perverse.
whereas the other one is saying, "Hey Mary, are you okay if I immaculate? I just have to speak it. I just need consent. That's
Yeah.
okay." The other ones, "I will give you my daughters if you will show me." You know what I'm saying? Like the other one is force. It's not trying to say the R word, but that's kind of
Yeah,
in essence. If I'm right with the Cain thing,
grape.
but yeah, YouTube. But that's in essence what's going down. And again, so when people are wondering when they're covering up which eye, you want to know which side your little occultic friend is going for. The what we have here from their own site, the eyes of Horus or the eye of Ra, Re, sun god, Re's word, Re the sun. Like I said, we're speaking allegedly a bastard language, or maybe this is what they were speaking originally. Don't know, but if they're covering up one or the other, um, the eye of Thoth is the left eye, and the eye of Ra is the right eye. And it's the difference between masculine energy and feminine energy. Considering Thoth Hermes is affiliated with feminine, and he is allegedly the guy that cut off his.
Mm-hmm. It's
Again, month of Tammuz is June, and it's also it connects with Juno Moneta, and that is allegedly the month of coinage. So if we do have a issue with currency, I'm just going to spitball this, giving all their stuff that they do. Expect it to be in a late May or early June. I'm just pitching that as a hypothesis. If a market was to crash, I would do it just because of all this symbolism.
it's we talk about the rebirth here and born again too, and then you have the left eye there, Eye of Thoth, and you think of like Left Eye from TLC, right? The band. And she was the only one who died in the group, like tragically, an accident, like a plane crash or something, wasn't it? She died tragically though too, and it's crazy to think like she was feminine. She covered Left Eye. The feminine side is what it showed, but yet she was died, and then TLC. Everybody was like, "Oh, the rest of TLC," and it's like, did we rebirth through this feminine fall? But you never know.
Again, if they're really dead, because a lot of Rosicrucians have it where they do a ceremony where they look like they're dead, or they have a career change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is when I was mentioning King Baeo, he having the thing with the coffins and roses. You can look it up. I think it's about 2 or 3 months back, maybe 4. But it was the minute I saw it, I was like, "Oh, bro, I thought maybe you were a little bit," but then I see that, and I'm like,
And
"What?" Oh,
what you this reminded me of it when you brought up Astaroth. I was thinking astral, and they have Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross, right? These are two saints, but the things you've been showing with like the Baphomet and he has kind of the staff with the burning egg, you know. She claimed Teresa of Avila when she was sick, dude, and this is what made them like canonize her and think she was a saint. She was visited by like a vision of an angel who had a golden dart with a flaming iron tip, and he stabbed her with it. Yeah. And it gave her like all the, the visions and whatnot she had. And I'm like, it's pretty crazy when you're showing us pictures of like Baphomet and Sol Invictus and whatnot.
well, again, does that not kind of sound a little bit like a Cupid's arrow similarity?
Right? There
Doesn't
you go.
sound consensual.
Oh, right.
It was consensual. I don't know, you're gonna do a Me Too movement against an angel? Come on, you can't
Yeah.
be a saint when you do that. That's just no.
I wrote it down. The angel plunged the spear into my heart several times. It's like,
Several times. That doesn't sound
Yeah,
I don't know. This is
that's getting a lot of unconsensual.
anyway.
I am totally consenting to this. So again, when we were talking about Ezekiel chapter,
It's surprise sex, guys. Yeah, I think
Bro.
you could still say surprise sex.
She said that the pain was so great that it made her moan as the sweetest, greatest pain caused by the Lord. These are her quotes, dude. This is Sister Teresa Avila.
it's either one, you were controlled, or two, you were part of a ceremony in the basement, and you literally are like Stockholm syndrome, just saying this stuff, and then people are like, "Oh, wow."
Dude, that's exactly what I thought at first. I was like, a dream? A vision?
I dreamed a dream of it. Yeah. All the tigers come at night. Yeah, I'm reading you, sister. That doesn't sound like a very pleasant lifestyle. In Ezekiel chapter 8, again, 8:16, And he brought me into the inner court of the temple, and behold, at the door of the temple, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs towards the temple and their faces towards the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. Again, sun god Tammuz going on in Christ's temple. And allegedly, what I find very interesting is that I think they were saying the Garden of Eden or something like that. That when God was casting them out of the Garden of Eden, I think it was towards the east. So when they're facing, basically, it's an inversion from what I was remembering. But the biggest thing that was making me think, when you tip the pyramid on its side, you get the Play logo, right? Google Play is the sigil of Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
So is every time you hit play a little bit of a thing where you're consenting time, the visual thing, onto your Black Mirror? Not that I'm saying it's wrong. I'm saying for Christians, like if you're using it for good, yes, but this is again, what does he say? The difference between good and evil? You can use it for good, or you can use it to look up inappropriate stuff. You can use it to do bad things and stock trading. Again, I'm filling in blanks, but you know what I'm saying? You can use it for good and evil and channel for good and evil. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the thing, as a Christian, what are you using it for? You're aware of what it can do, but are you willing to abstain and abide by God's word when you're using said instrument? Or are you going to use it for bad? Because some people are saying, you're just being a hypocrite because you're using the same thing. Yes, but no weapon against me shall prosper, right? As Matt might, is this like a military thing? Imagine getting behind enemy lines and you're over here like, I'm going to turn the machine gun on them. That's in essence what you're doing with demonic technology that we're using, because we're using it for ministry purposes.
Absolutely.
A lot of people have left the pulpits and have gone to the podcast, which is interesting because the word sermon means talks. What in essence is a podcast? It's talk.
Talk radio.
Correct. Yep.
I feel like they all just keep copying and pasting each other's sermons anyways.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of, well, because they're not talking about real things, dude, and or they go to a mega church and it's
Love.
all like, make me
Love.
feel good.
Well, that's all. It's just
Yeah.
love.
And the other one's over here like, listen, I love my kid too, but sometimes I have to yell at them because they're doing some stupid stuff and I don't want them to grow as an adult. And then they're over here, who raised you?
Yep.
I want to, like, if as a man, I want to leave a legacy. That was my dad. This is something, I'm proud of that. Did we have moments where we were a little bit butting heads? Yes, but guess what I got from it? I became a better individual in society. And I want to keep that going with the family name, that we have a reputation of being good, upstanding citizens. We do our thing. We contribute to our tribe and community. This is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
No shame in that, folks.
At all.
Again, just more stuff with pontifices, so we can skip that. So, anyways, when they're doing this whole sigil of the cross thing, that is the sign of the pentagram. Historically, the cross is symbolic with the Sumerian sun god Tammuz. The cross also represents the solstices and the equinoxes and the four main positions of the sun. In Egypt, the god Ra symbolized the powerful midday sun. Osiris, Nimrod dead, was the god of the dark sun. Horus, Tammuz, was the god of the rising sun, and Set, not sure, was the god of the setting sun. When the pagan sun worshipper, the Emperor Constantine, saw the sign of the cross, it was about the sun. Thus, when Catholics do the sign of the cross gesture, it goes right back to ancient sun worship.
Mm-hmm. And why does the Pope make like an upside down one? Right? He starts at like his forehead down to his, and then his titties, and then he's like over to his shoulders. It's like, dude, the cross is upside down.
Part of that is to appease the Jews. Edward Hendry, he did a book, Solving the Mystery of Babylon the Great. And even though basically Catholicism is going back to what Paul was always condemning, we are being set apart as Christians. We're no longer doing the Judaic faith. We shouldn't be founded as a Judaic Christian country. No. As Christians, we're done with that. We are now the new elect. And again, when you look up elect in the New Testament, it means chosen in the original Greek. So telling me that we have a chosen people and an ecclesia at the same time, you're telling me God has two brides. Does that sound like something God's ever been in favor of in the entire New Testament? No. He's like, I'll tolerate it, but it's not what I want. I want one. I want submission. I want loyalty. I want a relationship. Whereas in contract with Hosea, I have you married her because your life story with her is going to be a story of why are you going after the prostitute constantly?
So I
Because
got
that's
I
about
got
money
one question about that. What
for sure.
where then so if you're the Vatican and you kind of create Islam, but yet you want to appease the Jews, those are two contradicting things. And then where, with all of the stuff we've been seeing, and all the symbolism, where in the heck did Mohammed come from that?
So Muhammad was basically a patsy. That one of his wives was a former nun. Root word for
Was
nun
that the
means
nine-year
fish.
old?
Hmm?
Yes,
Was that the 9-year
He
old?
he had I can't
several.
remember how many, but he did have the. It was married at 6, consummated at 9.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
I remember the bad portion of that one. Yeah,
yeah, it was
consummated
like,
at 9.
no, this is the guy we're siding with here. We're gonna go with this. We're gonna
This
go
is
with it?
this
All
is your
right, all right,
Messiah.
right. Or even then, it's like, okay, so if Christ was a good prophet, what makes Muhammad better? Because Muhammad had to ask for forgiveness, and that was Surah 48, 1 through verses 1 and 2, for people who want to cross-reference and of the Muslim faith. It says that Muhammad, you had to ask for forgiveness, whereas in the other one it says Christ, I believe it's Corinthians, who is the perfect sacrifice, and in him there was no sin. Muhammad had to ask for forgiveness from Allah, if you were going to say that's God, whereas Christ never did. So right there, if you're saying compare contrast of prophets, Christ is already winning the upper hand in this argument.
And then the other
Secondly,
one's dead in a rock, right?
right.
Yes.
Still dead.
Like,
Dead.
again,
The end.
Mecca, what's sacred about a rock? Christ doesn't have some sacred rock. No, why? Because it's about keeping the word applicational in your life. Um, and that's why I was listening to a sermon last week, and it was really because God was born into this world, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I find that really hard to hear. It says, no, he gave us his word. That's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be with me, listen to my word. The word is the seed of life, right? If you want to live for eternity, you want to have communion, you want to walk in a garden with me again in paradise, today you'll be with me in paradise. He's watching this, the other guy's seeing him doing all this. What is he seeing? I am seeing you live what you say. I'm seeing you live what I don't know. I don't know. Um, Yeah, but this is the thing again, air, fire, water, earth. Again, when you look up the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, it was 4 horses that pulled the black conical stone. I'm just finding that all interesting, but these all are elements within the apocalypse. Whether you want to go air, chemtrails, fire, wildfires, water when they're doing hurricanes and crap like that, HARPA, earth, Statue of Liberty, as above, so below. I love the things of this earth more than heaven,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is again all the stuff that they're showing.
This is
Uh,
the YMCA. That's what that was. That was literally the YMCA dance. Air is
Yeah,
the
it
Y,
is, dude.
fire is the A, water could be like the M, and earth would be the C.
that's probably
They,
why Trump plays it all the time.
they got a whole country doing it.
Yeah, what's
Yeah, they're just going, yeah, right, yeah. Oh, I saw those around the Christmas tree. I was like, oh wow, it's bad.
I
It's bad.
love, speaking of the fight he was at when John Jones knocked that dude out, he did the Trump.
Oh no.
I was like, no,
I
they're
think a
making
couple
fun
of
of you,
football
Trump.
players have done it in the end zone. I'm like, oh man.
I hate it. I hate it.
It's an epidemic, dude. It's an epidemic. Seeing when they do it very slow.
Oh,
Pentagram.
wow. Yeah.
So, and again, the pentagram is over Baphomet's what? Pineal gland.
Pineal.
Solve is one coming into existence from another realm, which was 9/11. Coagula is blood clot, the other tattoo on Baphomet's arm. I don't think that's a coincidence. Smithsonian. How come? Oh, they found Bigfoot bones. No, they didn't. Well, they gave it over to the Smithsonian. No, we didn't. Why? Because that's connecting with the Jesuits. Vatican, Jesuits, why they have all the. They don't want you to know. We're going to put out what we want you to be proud of America or whatever. But don't look into the other stuff. Did you know what Lewis and Clark I believe it was Lewis that got allegedly assassinated. He was shot twice for some information that he may or may not have had of things that he found on the other side of the Mississippi River that they didn't want getting out to the
What?
public. Yeah, I was like shot twice, and one of the clips I was watching is like he might have shot him. So I'm like, with a flintlock, I would be doing everything in my power to make sure it goes through first round because I don't want to be sitting there going like, did it work? And secondly, there was other people around, so
Yeah, they're
you just
getting to you.
boom. Flintlocks aren't
And you
exactly
have to
fire,
reload it with half a face now.
right? Or you try to aim it into your chest.
Yeah.
No, you would want to make sure it's a one and done, or you're over here like, dude, you mind? Okay,
Wow.
just
Here
saying.
they
I
are.
guess.
Here they are wearing the colors of Babylon.
Yes, red, black, purple.
You know,
The halo. Why is the halo a thing? Halos connect with Horus. Halo connect again. If you're seeing this with either they have Islam down here, they have Buddha, they have Sol Invictus, Horus. I'm just gonna
White
get freaked out
Jesus.
now that I just did that. Trying to make a point. The thing is, Christ is not affiliated with the Son. It is part of the Creator's creation. It is not something you have to affiliate Christ with. Is he probably as bright as the sun? Absolutely. I'm not going to negate that. But to affiliate that with him or the cross with him, you're affiliating that with dark people and the Jesuits. You're affiliating that with Masons. You're affiliating that with secret bad people. Can skip that. Oh yeah. So Mithra, something I found interesting is that this is Anton LaVey. Freemasonry as a rudimentary screening process of organized Satanism for those who naively think that politics and ritual magic do not mix.
and he would know.
No. And again, he's affiliated with Kabbalah. As I looked on the Church of Satan ministries, he was talking about chakras and stuff like that, and they're affiliating that with him. Tammuz, again, month of June, but the all-seeing eye. His symbol is the all-seeing eye, and again, you see it in the Catholic Church constantly. You see it on our dollar bill.
Mm-hmm.
What country? Not the Vatican, America. That's why I think Tom Horn's vision does have some validity, where he says an Apophis happening 2029,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly hitting the West Coast, and I think that would be Mystery Babylon the Great falling in an hour because a celestial mountain has
Yep.
just fallen on the West Coast.
I got a
Everybody's
pretty cool book about that from Tom Horn. It's sweet.
the Wormwood.
Yes.
I want to pick it up. Dude, the more, again, seeing what they did with the years ahead, 2029 alien invasion, knowing what we know about Project Bluebeam, seeing that prophecy, for me, it's like, I don't really want to take everybody when there's like, it's a prophecy. But at the same time, I'm looking at that going, they want it done by 2030, so I could see it. I could
Yeah.
see it. Early believers of Sabbath was March 7th. Until March 7th, it's 321, when Constantine passed a law requiring believers to worship on Sunday, the day the pagans worshiped the sun god. Believers still kept Saturday as the Sabbath until another law was passed 11 years later. This law, signed into decree by Constantine, forbid believers to worship on Sabbath Saturday, and it was punishable by death by the Catholic Church. Many believers burned to death by the Catholic Church for keeping the Sabbath.
What did he tell the people was the reason? What was the cover up?
So he says here, and he officially declared Sunday from the Latin dies solis, or Dios voltus dies Dios. I'm just saying there's meaning the day of the sun as the day of rest, and in so doing forever changed Sabbath worship to Saturday to not being Sunday. So in
He didn't even
essence,
cover it up.
in essence, he was like, you're going to accept this deal or I'm gonna go kaboom. It's like, well, so a lot. Also, another thing I was reading in the Cult and Soul Victus, what they did with a lot of Mithra temples, like the Christians would go after it, they would destroy the caves and stuff like that, and then they would Christianize it, quote unquote, Catholicized it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the other Christians, they would still do house church. They would still this. And then eventually it became the state religion. It's like you're going to show up here or else. Now, let's say you were actually one of the original Christians and you're going there with your kids. And unfortunately, some of your kids is seeing the other stuff go down. And then eventually you become Catholic. And then you're going, it is the original one true church. No,
Yep.
you took the parasite, unfortunately, because you were forced to do it. You know what I'm saying? So when they
Yeah,
were saying the
punishable by death.
Antichrist, yeah, the Antichrist will change the time and seasons and laws and stuff like
Burning
that.
to death. Not just death, bro.
Oh yeah,
That's a horrible death.
and tied to a stake across sometimes. This is part what Nero was doing. He'd have them lit up like candles. He'd rub their bodies in tar and stuff like that, and then he'd walk through the garden. And I was like, yeah, you're a sick guy. Oh, so Queen of the Heavens. For 11 centuries, this was the name for the Queen of the Heavens. Isis was known as the Queen of the Heavens, but this was in October of the 1950s, 52, 54, 56, I believe. I'm drawing a blank as to which one, but it was an even number. It was when they made it official.
So they're changing, they're just adding their own line to scripture, calling her the Queen of the Heavens now.
Yeah, they literally just said, okay, we're gonna call her that. And it's like, well, if you Bibled that,
Yeah.
it wasn't a good name. It wasn't affiliated with a good person. The IHS for the Jesuits solar logo is said to be the monogram for Jesus, Savior of Men. But within the Eleusinian mysteries, IHS symbolized the ancient Greek god Lacus, later called Bacchus, Nimrod, on the emblem of the three nails, which in the Hebrew are Vav. In Hebrew gematria, Vav equals the number 6, and literally means nail. The three nails of them make 666. In addition, the 36 rays of the sunburst contain 666. The sum of the first 36 numbers equal 666. All these symbols are depicted on the black sun. That includes the glyph of Saturn. Taken all together, the Jesuit seal represents the dark Luciferianism. 3 nails on Christ, 3 nails for the Jesuits. Society of Jesus. Like, again, you're using Christ's name. It's the Star of David. You're using a good person's name and reputation, and you're putting this dark agenda in on it, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're curing cancer. Yeah, but it's Masons. We're wrapping up.
Everybody's got to do a little bit of good.
Oh, yeah. Cathode means negative moon energy. Black sun is in the center. Allegedly, that's why everything goes north, because the black rock that they're talking about is a black mountain in the very center where we're all not allowed to go. And this is why everything points north, because the North Star of Polaris, this is Zion, this is Mount Negros. This is how we all ascend to become like gods. We sit above the dome, like Baphomet does, as above, so below. The cathode, cathedral, if it's true that cathedrals are the hollowed out bodies of fallen giants, and they were founded and renovated by Masons in the Catholic Church.
What?
So when you gather there, you're being energy vessels harvested for these beings, right? Allegedly. So a lot of people said when I went to the Catholic Church, it felt so dark. It felt so that I don't know. I've had a lot of former Catholics tell me this that became New Agers, right? Because they want to feel better. They don't want to feel trapped. So, right?
So grounding's become a whole thing now too.
Yes. Well, again, grounding is not necessarily evil, but when they're trying to go tree hugging and all this stuff, or they're trying to harness energy, it's just like God's
right,
like,
right. Like, oh, I gotta, like this tree helps me feel all kinds of energy. Like,
yeah.
trees making you feel energy.
It's like, can you just appreciate the creation without going nutsy cuckoo on it? It's kind of like a dog. Can I pee on it? Sure, but
why?
Yeah, it's like because of me. So when you're trying to understand the Star of Remphan or the Star of David, you're trying to understand this. So you got the Queen of the Heavens sitting at the top of the stairs. This is Astros, Semiramis, call her what you will, Virgin Mary. She sits underneath the sun. So the sun represents Ra, Re, Nimrod, right? It's first sun god. You got Nimrod down here, and he points up at the sun, moon, and stars, Queen of the Heavens, right? This is her jurisdiction. This is what she's known for. Who's in the center? Well, see this Caduceus staff? You could lay that on top. You could put the Hermetic Kabbalah Tree of Life. You could put several things on top of this. And he's doing the as above, so below pose, right? And in one hand, he holds a key. In the other hand, he holds an anchor. In Freemasonry, an anchor equals hope, but he holds a key. And what's that key represent? Unlocking your God potential. Pyramid. Pyramid. Pi equals fire. Re, Ra, sun god. Mid, in your midst. Fire of the sun god in your midst. That's what you're all seeing on your dollar bill. In God we trust. Tammuz, sun god. How to achieve this
And
between
look,
two
the east is on the top even of this.
east
To the east. Yep.
to the west. Yes.
Avoid
Yes. See?
drawing maps.
I love it when somebody catches on. Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And again, two snakes. It's phenomenal, dude, because again, no one's explained that to me. I just was going, okay, I know what this means, I know what that means, and the next thing you know, dissect it. You know what I'm saying? It's you see it, and this is what they do. That's what Manly P. Hall was saying. Is that when mankind learns to read the signs and symbols, a great veil will fall from the eyes and minds of men. Revelation, Apocalypse, the lifting of the veil. It's there. We can skip this unless you want to connect with the Muslim thing. But it was just essentially saying what I said earlier about that their God was originally known as Allah was known as Sin, and he comes from Turkey, and he went all the way down into Egypt, which is connecting with the very migration of Nimrod coming from Mount Ararat, and then eventually getting to Hermes, going to the Nile. There's just a little bit trajectory of the of the story going. It could be wrong, but somehow the Islam thing is connecting here, and the reason to create Islam is because when the Jewish elders were kicked out from after the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 AD, it is alleged we still have some stuff over there that we want to go get back, but we need to have an enemy.
Huh. Okay.
Okay, and this is why they call them, even to this day, Islam is the broom of Israel. You
That's
need to have a
crazy.
problem, so we need to have and who are we going to go get to fight for us?
Mm-hmm.
The Gentiles. We'll go
Mm-hmm.
send the Gentiles to go take care of the other ones, right? It's always been the same plan.
Hmm.
Ba-ba.
Same place.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so this is the thing I was talking about with Mithra having the Last Supper. Last Supper.
Look at the
And what's
animals
his
in
face?
Mithra.
Hmm?
Look at the animals in Mithras.
Yeah, you got like a little boar again, connecting with Tammuz.
Mm-hmm.
It could be wrong, but like I said, after Babel, gets a little bit dissected, but there's always elements of the story that are always at play still. Yeah, Caduceus staff you see here, carried by Hermes, and we had this whole thing with what went down with the Who. The Who?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a coincidence that they threw that on there, or that there's a flat Earth logo behind it. Ba-ba-ba-ba. So, are you aware that Trump is in charge of the Exchequer, the Vatican, and World Bank?
Say that again.
Yeah. Let's play this clip. This is by Gerald Posner. He's talking about a book that he wrote, God's Bankers. Highly recommend picking it up if you're one of those nerds that wants to figure it all out. But he's doing a segment on Bloomberg, and he's explaining this. I think this is back in 2017-18. Whoop, why isn't it playing?
Within the Catholic Church, who went forth and spread the teachings of Christianity. Jesuits.
When is a central bank not a central bank? When is a private bank public and a public bank private? Sound mysterious, full of secrets? Well, that's the Vatican Bank.
In 1929, they had a deal with Mussolini, the head of the fascist state. He recognized them as a real country, that little piece of land, and in return gave them about $1 billion in the day's money, compensating them for the loss of the papal faith. They said, what do we do with $1 billion? We're clerics, not financiers. They hired a guy who was a brilliant financial whiz, Bernardino Nogaro. He came in, he understood arbitrage, he understood offshore banking, he understood how to move hard assets around, investments in real estate. And he started to do that in the middle of World War II. He said to the Pope, I need a bank. It's not enough to have correspondent banks. We need to move our money off the radar so the British and Americans can't follow what we're doing, because they were playing both sides. The Americans embraced they were investing in, and the Germans and Italians, they didn't know who would win. They wanted to make sure they were covered. And that's the birth of the Vatican Bank. From an institution that can't embrace capitalism, but one that suddenly has its own bank in the middle of the war. They were in control of the Fed. So Trump did not leave until Pope Francis issued a papal bull announcing that by a certain date, the Vatican Bank,
which was in charge of was the head executor, the exchequer of all of the earth-wide Federal Reserve banking systems in each country, would be handed over to one Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump is not or just the executor, the exchequer of the U.S. Treasury and therefore the Fed within the United States. He is the exchequer for Earth. He is the exchequer for the treasuries for every single country on Earth. That's what I told you earlier. No human being in history has ever been more powerful, owned more things, or richer than Donald Trump. And we are working on that as we speak. We have conversations with various representatives of China. I believe that will all work out very well for everybody. China, Japan, the United States, and everybody in the region. As far as the currency devaluations, I've been complaining about that for a long time. And I believe that we will all eventually, and probably very much sooner than a lot of people understand or think, we will be all on a level playing field. Yes, sir.
Level playing field. So, like, the guy you got for our treasurer, Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, who is in charge of the Soros fund management. He's going to get rid of our national debt, probably via Bitcoin, right? So wouldn't this kind of be an incentive
way
if you're
you
hearing?
could do it really is just to turn it into another fiat currency.
Exactly. But then everybody would be like, well, that's a great way to combat BRICS, right? Because we just pissed off China, and then at the same time he's amping up tariffs. So what are they? Oh, we got crap on our cereal with Kellogg's and everything like that. So what's everybody going to do? Yeah, let's get the bad food off of our shelves. There's a shortage of food. Oh, we're fixing it. We're going to make it better. There's a rise in tariffs. And this would fulfill what goes on in Revelation. Again, it might take a year or two, right? But eventually, there's nothing on the shelves that's healthy. Where is everything? Don't worry, we're getting it fixed. We're getting it fixed. I don't know, but I could see some of this stuff go down. We already covered all this, but again, the dove being slain. I found that interesting. This is in the Denver airport, and then there's a dove, a Saturn, a rocket, Space Force, and it has Donald Trump's name signed on the same sword that is on the red caps. And this is Trump's pastor, Norman Vincent Peale, a 33-degree Mason, wearing this thing. The red caps are affiliated with the blood of Christians that these hats were dipped in, and this is why they were red, and then they put it on their heads. I don't know. But again, the Christ that they're giving us sounds very similar to what we get in Revelation in the description of both Mithra and Christ. I don't have to read all of that, but for me, I think this is how you're going to pull off the great deception, because the Christ that they give us wears the white tunic and the red sash, right?
Mm-hmm.
The I, the one, the God particle, 33 times 2, 66. Followers of the beast is 616, or I, 6I6, 616. Find that inner light of God within you. So it's 33 times 2, and then you have skull and bones founded on 322, 3 times 22, 66. What's missing? The I, the one, the God particle. 911, 9 times 11, 99. Invert that, 66. What's missing? The I, the one, the God particle are going between the two pillars to find the one that shows you how to become your own God. Earth, the same pose. The magician, MAGA means magician. High priest of the sun, which is what Catholics are worshiping. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. It's wearing red and purple. All-seeing eye is at the church.
Are they saying that they had too much wine?
Blood, again, like I was reading before with the Mithras thing, right? It's a ceremony.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With the blood of the saints, blood of, I don't know. You want a zombie apocalypse? I think we have enough people. Last slide. The official seal of the Grand Lodge of Israel includes the Star of David, a Christian cross, Tammuz, and the Muslim crescent, Virgin Mary, all superimposed over a Masonic square and compass and encircled in the chain of union. The Grand Lodge was established in 1953. So as an antichrist, all these elements are at play, and they all connect to the unholy trinity of Babel. Whether folks want to acknowledge it or not, Tammuz, Nimrod's star Remphan, and the Queen of the Heavens, all encapsulated on a single crest in Zion. So anyways, gentlemen, counterfeit Christianity, that's all we got. Sorry for the length, but again, I condensed what I could. I condensed where I could because everybody doesn't need to hear the same thing all the time.
We never hate the length. We say it over and over. That's I like that you brought up stuff like that though. You know, the backstory right there at the end too, where they kind of made it seem like Trump has just sort of bought his way into all these people and, you know, heard their ideas and got a hold of it and went, oh, okay,
Right.
we can roll with that. You know, it seems like he had the back info from some of that stuff, you know.
Or he's been being groomed for this because he's not even eligible to be president. He was born in the province of the United Nations, so technically he's a United Nations citizen. And the fact that Donald means world ruler,
That's a
your
pretty good
mom's
point.
name was Christ,
What?
Mary Christ something.
Huh.
I'm just saying, there's a few things where I'm going, I want to be wrong, but that's kind of weird. Is that kind of weird? No, I'm wrong. Okay.
Right? They
So,
yeah, and then like you had pointed out too, right there in the early '60s, right, with the Vatican councils, just
mhm.
flooding in occultism, and I wonder that too. You know, like when I went to that wedding, I had noticed some stuff. There was like Jesus, you know, crucified behind the altar, but then the all-seeing eye was above Jesus. Even I was like, why is that on top of him? And it's gold.
That was gold.
Oh yeah,
And
carved
I love
into
it
gold.
when you're pointing it out. They're over here saying, "Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it." It's like,
Yeah, he's just watching you.
But
He loves
in a
you.
religion that's based entirely on symbolism, you
"Hmm."
know?
And then, like you said, Matt, it's so easy at the end, you know, of that wedding. Every Catholic walked by a big old vat of holy water and just dipped their finger in it and touched. Oh, we're good to go. We've been cleaned for today. Like,
Like a little bird bath.
dude, it exactly looked like that. It's funny to me.
And again, I do that with all religions though, or denominations, demon eye nations. Because if you're focused so much at defending your adjective or whatever theology crap, and again, I'm saying the petty stuff, and you're not willing to actually go over the deep stuff, yeah, I think this is where Christianity is really starting to lose it because they're over here saying, "Oh, you're just trying to be an over dot connector and you're missing out." It's like, no, I think some of us need to start doing that in our field of expertise because I'm not seeing a lot of people from behind the pulpit touch it, and we are blatantly sinning, bringing some of this stuff into our churches. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
Christmas tree. I want to go full Gideon and start burning down the groves unto Ashtaroth and Baal if you don't mind,
Yeah,
because it's not acceptable. Don't yeah.
they they have a literal while we're on Baal and all that. The exulted hymn that they speak, that they say all the time in the church. The literal Latin definition of it, word for word, calls Lucifer calls Christ the light bearer in it. He's speaking to Christ and calls him the light bearer, which
Seriously.
is yeah, the exalted him. And
Yeah.
I'm like, these people are saying that, and they're literally saying a hymn where the light bearer, the fallen one, is calling Christ the light bearer. I'm like, where's the contradiction there?
And that's the part of the new age aspect is that they're trying to invert things so that if you don't know your Bible, you won't notice when passages like the lion will lay down with the lamb. It's like, no, it's the wolf. You sure about that, bro?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because every like again, that's where you go with the Mandela Bible effect, and you're just like, well, I'm not quite sure you're right. But again, that's why they're going to second guess everything because they're going to be like, well, let's duke it out. Okay, Prophet of Baal, let's see what you got. That's why you're supposed to know your Bible. Guard it with your heart.
Yes.
Hide your words in my heart that I may not sin against God.
Mm-hmm. Everybody, please, you know where to find Brandon. We will put his show notes or his information in our show notes.
Buy merch. Please
Buy
support the
merch.
show.
Yes. He's got cool merch.
Bible doesn't care about your feelings. I think it's the shirt you got.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sweater.
I got, what was the other one? Lack of prayer or forfeit your sense of peace.
Yes. Those are fantastic.
They're
Those are
limited.
those are the ones I roll with.
Nice,
Look
thanks.
look at the merch.
Yeah,
Look at his pages. We are the end of days best friends. And you can't always trust everything that's just told to you right off the top.
1,000%.
Especially if you're a Christ follower. Everybody's going to try every direction but Christ to take you.
Hmm.
I'm your boy Michael.
And I'm Matt.
That's Brandon. We're the End of Days
And a
best
daily
friends.
podcast.
Yes, always in the show notes, folks.